Welcome, everyone. I am going to call to order the September 9th, 2020 meeting of the Hingham School Committee. I am going to announce that this meeting is being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to an order issued by the Governor of Massachusetts dated March 12, 2020, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify me at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that I can inform all other participants of the recordings. Now, I know Harbor Media is recording. Is anyone else recording? If so, if you could unmute yourself and let me know. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone, so we will move on to item 2. And that is the approval of minutes. Before we do that, I wanted to just have everybody, all the school committee members identify themselves for the public so they know who we are. So Michelle Ayer.
Hello, I'm Michelle Ayer.
Thank you, Michelle. Jen Benham.
Hello, Jen Benham.
Ness Carenti.
Hi, Ness Carenti.
Carlos De Silva.
Hello, Carlos Da Silva.
Libby Lewicki.
Libby Lewicki.
Hi, Libby. And Liza O'Reilly.
Hello, good evening.
And I'm Carrie Nee. Okay, so the approval of the minutes. The first one is 2.1, minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 5th, 2020, the 9:30 a.m. community forum.
I'll move that we approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 5th, 2020 at 9:30 a.m. For the community forum.
Thank you, Carlos. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Michelle. And roll call vote. Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Liza?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay, second is minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 5th, 2020, 4:30 p.m., the community forum.
I move that we approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 5th, 2020 at 4:30 p.m.
I'll second.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you, Carlos. Any discussion?
I have just an edit towards the bottom. When we adjourn, it says voted to adjourn the full school committee meeting. The time is 5:47:08. So I think it's 5:47 is what it should be.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ness. So we have a motion with that amendment. Michelle?
Second.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what's the amendment? I'm sorry, change from what to what?
So on page 2 on under 4.0 adjourn, it says on a motion made by Michelle Ayer and seconded by Liza O'Reilly, it was voted to adjourn the full school committee meeting at 5:47:08. There's just one additional number in there.
Oh, okay, good catch.
Or we're getting very technical with our timing.
Seriously.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. So Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Yes?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Liza?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. 2.3, minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 5th, 2020, 7 p.m. community forum.
I move that we approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 5th, 2020 at 7 p.m. also for the community forum.
Thank you, Carlos. Do we have a second?
Second again.
Thanks, Michelle. Any discussion on this one? Liza?
I was attending the Town Master Plan Committee meeting, and I was not in attendance at that meeting, so my name needs to be removed.
Okay. Libby, can you do that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So we have a motion and a second, and then we'll add with that addendum. Is there any other discussion? Okay, Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Liza?
Aye.
An aye for me too. All right, 2.4, minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 6th, 2020.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 6, 2020.
Thank you.
I'll second again.
Thanks. Any discussion on this one? Okay, seeing none. Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Eliza?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. 2.5, minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 10th, 2020.
I move that we approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 10th, 2020.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion on the August 10th? Okay, seeing none. Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Liza?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. 2.6, minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 19th, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the school committee meeting held on August 19th, 2020.
Carlos?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on August 19th minutes?
I think Jen has something.
Jen?
Sorry, is this the one that we were in the library?
Yes.
Does it say, I just saw a revote at the top. Does it matter?
No, I don't think it does matter because
Okay.
we were in the library, but it was over.
Sorry, it was just the top line just caught my eye. Just wanted to mention it, but understood.
I think we're okay.
Okay.
Is there anything else? No? Okay, so Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye, and thank you, Julie and Libby, for all the great work with the minutes.
Libby?
Julie. Thank you to Julie. Aye.
Liza?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, and I second Carlos's comment. That was a lot of work. So, okay, item 3 is question and comments. The Hingham School Committee encourages community engagement and welcomes questions and comments as agenda items are discussed during the meeting. In addition, we have set aside up to 15 minutes at the beginning of the meeting for discussion, questions or comments that fall under the purview of the school committee and are not already on tonight's agenda. If any guests wish to speak, normally you come to the microphone, but because we're on Zoom, we're going to ask you to raise your hand and click on participants at the bottom of the screen, and the list will come up, and use the raise hand function, and we will call on people. I want to say that all topics have to be not on the agenda and also within the purview of the school committee, which are 1, to select and terminate the superintendent, 2, to review and approve budget for public education in the district, and 3, establish educational goals and policies for the schools in the district. Speakers are encouraged to present their remarks in a respectful manner and to consider the privacy issues of others. The public comment is not a time for debate or response to comments by the school committee. The school committee is not adopting or endorsing any of the comments made during the public comment period. And each speaker is going to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. If you're here and you have comments about things that are on the agenda, again, we will take comment then. So I see Joshua Ross.
Hi, thanks. Joshua Ross, 125 Wampatuck Road. Just real quick, and this has to do with just clarifying some policy. The PTOs have gotten a few questions regarding participation for students with regards to homeschooling. I know that you guys are voting on some homeschooling stuff, but I just thought since this was a little bit separate, you guys can answer this. Homeschoolers are allowed to participate in PTO activities, correct? According to, I believe it's 6.25 of the policy. I just wanted, since it's extracurricular, I just wanted to confirm that with everyone.
Yes, that's correct. Children who are homeschooled in any time are allowed to participate in school activities, including PTOs.
Okay, great. That was it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Josh. All right, Julie Donovan.
Hi, this is Julie Donovan, 6 Blue Sky Drive. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry, I was trying to unmute my camera so I can join the conversation. I want to make sure my question is within the purview of the school committee, so please direct me or cut me off to make sure that I'm appropriate. I just want to make sure I understand how the decision gets made about extending the school day to have in-school learning longer than the 2 half days that is the plan right now. How does that decision get made? What are the metrics? And what role can parents play to influence that decision?
So Dr. Austin, are you going to be covering that later? Or
I am actually going to cover that in my PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to address that then.
Okay, fabulous. I look forward to that. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, and I don't see any other hands, so we'll move on to 4.1, the superintendent's report, school reopening update.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you're going to go ahead and say my name. I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
I was jumping the gun on you. I'm sorry, Carrie, very much. Welcome, everyone. It's always nice to have 326 people, and I invited my home. We've been doing since March, so nice to see you all on Zoom. I do have a PowerPoint presentation for you tonight.
Another one?
Whoever's doing that, could you please mute?
I just muted her.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Yes, we'll do a PowerPoint tonight to give you a presentation on where we're at right now. And so we'll go from there. Julie, can I have you put that up for me, please? So folks, what we're going to do tonight, I've received a lot of questions from many people, from parents, from community members, from teachers. And so this PowerPoint is addressing hopefully a lot of those questions that people have and give you an idea of where we're at. So tonight I'm going to go over the timeline of events of what's happened since last March, progress on our learning plan, progress towards our memorandum of agreement that people have a lot of questions about, talk a little bit about the reopening of schools, as well as some key updates from transportation, our PPE, building maintenance, financial data, health matrix, as was just asked, and then our enrollment projections. So just quickly on the timeline, starting in May, if you look to the left of our timeline, this is when we, even before the school year was out and prior to getting any guidance, we had come up with the idea of developing the recovery response advisory committees and formed those at the end of May. Those meetings initially occurred in the 1st of June when we formalized the 5 areas, which is the steering committee chaired by me, and then the social emotional educational by Dr. Whitelaw, facilities and operation by John Ferris, student services, Dr. Vinnis, and communications public relations by Katie Roberts. We received the initial guidance from DESE. That was the initial reopening guidance on June 25th. And then in July, we began our meetings into the RRAC and beginning to look at that data and uncover it. Also in July, we began our negotiations towards the end of July with the HEA. And then August 5th, 3 community forums. The 6th, the school committee approved our reopening plan. And then also in August, the schools began to operationalize our approved plan, and then ending with new teacher orientation began on the 24th, and then teach professional development, which began on the 26th and still ongoing today. So just to give you an update on the learning plan. So the school committee approved the district learning plan that was submitted on August 6, 2020. That was submitted to DESE. The approved plan is a phased-in hybrid, with school starting on September 16 for all students. Teachers and staff have been engaged in professional development since August 26, and this will continue through September 15. Professional development has been carefully crafted to provide teachers with the skills and resources needed to fully implement remote, hybrid, and in-person instruction that, again, will begin on September 16. Our first 8 days of the school year, which is September 16 through 25, will be remote for most students. But during this time, small groups of students, particularly at the elementary level, may be engaged in orientation, teacher meetings, student assessment, or a teacher meet and greets. In-person instruction for all students will begin on September 28, based upon the schedule of the 4 cohort model that we developed. So progress of memorandum of agreement with the association. Many people have asked questions. The district is working with Hingham Education Association to develop the memorandum of agreement for the reopening of schools. We have been meeting regularly since the end of July. We are meeting 3 times this week alone just to hopefully finish the MOA. Learning plan adopted by the school committee on August 6th was intended to provide the overview of the expectations, which is our what we call the 30,000-foot view. You've probably heard me say that before. While the MOA is intended to provide the nuts and bolts in regards to the expectations for both the district and its teachers. So that's why the MOA is important, and those are the things we're working on. I'm glad to tell you that substantial progress has been made, but details on the expectations for remote and hybrid learning are still in discussion. We understand the need for additional information, and we will continue to work hard to get that to you as soon as possible, but they have to be done. I remain hopeful and confident that we will come to an agreement on some of the most important aspects of the plan in the very near future. I'm hoping this week. We have scheduled meetings for Thursday and Friday evening this week. So the reopening schools. So the opening phase, which begins Wednesday, is remote learning for all on 9/16. Our 4 cohorts. We have an A and B, which is approximately one half of each grade per school. Each student will attend 2 days in person, 3 days in remote. AB students with high-level needs and support services will begin as early as 9/17. Each student will attend 4 days in person, 4 AB cohorts. Select students actually might attend 5 days beginning on 9/16. Remote, the R, is students who will be fully remote will receive 5 days per week remote instruction, which begins on 9/16. Note, the cohorts A, B, and R will be remote only for 9/16 through 9/25. In-person instruction for A and B will begin on 9/28. For students in AB, they will generally start on the 17th. Some actually might start on the 16th, depending on high level of need and the types of services that we have to provide. But all students A, B, and R will be remote for the most part in 9/16 through 9/25. So there's a lot of questions on the cohorts. For elementary, they were arranged by neighborhood. This enabled the students to stay with children for whom they were familiar, people who lived in their neighborhood, and it was more efficient to transport by neighborhood. In the middle school and the high school, they were done alphabetically. Now, due to the complexity of the schedule, we needed to develop cohorts by alphabet so we could get an even distribution of students in the classrooms. We know this created some family issues, and I know that they're trying hard to adjust those to the best of their ability. I will say that one move creates a domino effect that all the schools are trying to manage. Transportation. This is a big issue for many. For DESE regulations, our transportation has been cut by 68%. That means we've gone from 77 students on a bus to 25 students. We operate 20 buses to transport our students in Hingham. The law requires districts to guarantee transportation for all students through 6th grade. While we'd hope to transport students through 8th grade, we simply are not going to be able to meet that expectation. We will only be able to guarantee transportation through 6th grade. Parents have offered to help in many ways, and I've had that from many parents who said, what can we do? Transportation is a big area of concern for us. We can only put 23 to 25 students on a bus at a time, and it's going to be nearly impossible to transport all of our students. Now, we're also going to talk a little bit later about potentially moving to phase 3, which is more students. Once that happens, our capacity becomes even more stressed. We're not going to be able to transport the students unless we make substantial adjustments to the time of day that students are going in. This is an area I need you to be aware of. So I also heard many questions about personal protective equipment. In fact, I had a call from a local press that said, tell me why you're not giving masks to our teachers in Hingham. That was not my response. My response was, we have over 250,000 masks available. The facilities department has developed cleaning protocols and procedures for each school. To date, we've expended more than $350,000 for PPE, and I think that number is closer to $400,000 now, for staff and student safety. We have in hand over 250,000 disposable face masks. We have over 1,700 boxes of gloves. We have 750 N95 masks. Each staff member has been provided 3 cloth masks each. We have 500 face shields, 2,000 disposable gowns, over 120 gallons of hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizing stations are now throughout each building at all entrances. We have plexiglass dividers, school safety signage, and hall flow markers. That's just a beginning of all the things that we purchased for PPE. And so they'll look very different when you walk into the schools, but you'll notice the signage, and everyone has appropriate PPE available to all staff at all times. A lot of questions have been asked about building maintenance, particularly around HVAC. So we've done major preventative maintenance, which is called PM, has been formed on our HVAC system and completed for both roof and classroom units. HVAC and ducts in schools, excluding the Hingham Middle School because it's not needed due to the age, have been completely cleaned throughout. All HVAC inspected and worked as expected. HVAC filtration has been increased from MERV 8s to MERV 11. We've heard a lot about whether or not we can put 8s or 11s or 13s. We've gone as high as we can on the equipment we have. Simply put, MERV 13s would not be tolerated in our systems and would break our system down. And so we've put the highest rating possible that our system can handle. That's a MERV 11. Indoor air quality IAQ testing has been completed by our industrial hygienist. All buildings are performing well within limits. The comments from the hygienist: I do more than 20 districts and Hingham would be in the top 3. I hear a lot of questions about air and exchange rates, etc. Our exchange rates range from an average, and our reports are all on our website. If you look on our website, look under the news section and the COVID-19, and you'll see a facilities area. You'll see all of our reports for our building on air quality. Our air exchange rates in our buildings are anywhere between 3.5 to over 10 per hour, which are exceptional, depending on the size of the room, etc. You also hear a lot about CO2 measurements, and our measurements are well within reason, well below 700 on any given day. For example, last year when a building was full, because there was a lot of questions about what happens when a building is full of students, last year in the middle of winter, we were ranging anywhere between 550 and 680 in our rooms. All of our rooms have detectors. All of the teachers can actually look at their detectors in the room and see what their CO2 levels are. Our building management system operating schedules have been adjusted to start our exchange system 2 hours prior to the school day and shut down 2 hours following the close of school each day, regardless of the time. So if we have students in the gym until 10 o'clock, they'll run until midnight. And then they'll start again 2 hours before anyone is in our buildings. Maintenance electrician has to perform monthly electrical inspections on all of the critical electrical HVAC system components. We have germ barriers installed for staff located in our frequently populated locations, such as offices. Some teachers have chosen to have them on their desk. We have them for any teacher who wants one. So some teachers have opted for that. We have 6-foot spacing signage markers in all of our halls and entrances. Classroom floors have been marked to ensure a 6-foot distancing of students from their desks. So their desks are actually put in markers where they belong, so they're easily measured, and we know that they're 6 feet apart. We have cleaning and sanitation protocols and tracking in the bathroom at all schools regarding when they're being cleaned. So there's always a protocol as well as when it's cleaning. Cleaning and sanitation, signage on protocols and expectations for all schools are easily posted and seen. We have cleaning protocols for sanitizing buildings and buses. Isolation rooms or waiting areas have been created for all of our schools, and we are building our flushing. Our buildings are flushing their domestic water regularly to ensure that there are no impurities in the plumbing and we report that to the Hingham Board of Health and work in collaboration with them. So a lot of work has gone into this. I have to give a lot of credit to Katie Hartman and Doug Foley for the amount of work they've done in getting our buildings ready. I am absolutely confident our buildings are spotless, they're ready to go, and we're happy to see students enter them. And so that's the end of that. You can go to the next slide, thank you. So some of the key financial data I want to tell you about. First, the thing is, I think it goes without saying that COVID-19 has substantially impacted our financial situation. To date, we have submitted for more than $700,000 in reimbursement from the Plymouth County CARES COVID relief funds. We will be submitting more to that too. As I've said, we've already spent quite a while. I'm going to tell you what we spent so far. So our COVID-related substantial expenditures, our technology for staff and students, we've spent over $1.2 million on laptops, Chromebooks, iPads for students and teachers. we've said all along that we don't have enough for full one-to-one for students, but I will guarantee if any student is in need of technology, we will get you what you need. We have machines for you. If you need someone or something, please let us know. We will get that for you. As far as the PPE, we've already talked about that. The district has spent more than $350,000 in PPE for our students and staff. As the pandemic continues, that number is obviously going to grow because we have to continue to make sure we have enough equipment on hand at all times. A little loss in revenue now because revenue is what we count in our budget as we build it. The full day program for kindergarten, we lost approximately $980,000 this year that was included in the expected revenue for FY21. So that takes us down to $1 million of what we expected. That's a very big hit. Our Kids in Action program from the before and after school program is a loss of more than $200,000 in anticipated revenue needed to offset the cost of staff and program. Some of those staff are being redeployed to other district needs to reopen. We have the possible potential loss of state aid from Chapter 70. The first quarter, which is just going to last to October, is level funded from FY20. The picture for the remaining 3 quarters is uncertain. We do anticipate significant reductions. So folks, I'm telling you this information because financially, this is going to be difficult for us to make up. We have to be very cautious as we move forward. But I also want to say, and I congratulate John Ferris and his hard work. Anything that we've needed to reopen, we've purchased. We've simply purchased it. And we're doing our best to cut costs anywhere else we can. But to reopen our schools, we have fully funded whatever we needed to fund in PPE and technology in particular to get us up and moving. So health metrics and moving through the phases. We have established a COVID response team, which consists of the following reps. It has me on it, the 6 building principals, an HEA, the HEA president, the Hingham Association president, our school nurse representative, Deb Whiting, our school physician, Dr. Stanley, and the Hingham Board of Health. We meet weekly to review the Hingham health metrics. All of our metrics are looking good at this point and have for the past month. I believe we moved to green again today, so we were gray. And we anticipate that we're going to move back and forth between green and gray fairly regularly. 1 or 2 cases here or there is going to make a difference. It's a very sensitive metrics. We don't anticipate, unless something, some sort of outbreak happens, that we move past that into yellow or red. So we should anticipate green or gray moving back and forth between those two all along. Our nursing staff is developing protocols related to contact tracing and communications. We are getting those protocols done. I know people have asked me about protocols or what happens if. The nurses just came back a week ago. They've been working very hard on getting those protocols done. And so by the first day of school, we will have protocols for exactly what happens if somebody is test positive, if it's a student, a staff, a family member. We will know how to respond to that exactly, and we'll have the communications ready to go to parents. We have a plan. I have a plan to review the metrics at the October 19th school committee meeting, and I will discuss at that time potential move to phase 3, which is 3-foot spacing for all students attending 5 days a week. We're not talking months. We've heard this from many people about when are we moving, how will you know? Well, part is the metrics. The metrics have to be good. We have to have a green or gray. We want to see that our school has been able to bring children in, that it's been successful, we have no transmission of cases, etc. And if we're ready, we hope to be moving at that time. We're talking about moving at that time when we can go to phase 3, which is bringing our students in 5 days a week. I want to be clear about some challenges of this because it's not as simple. I know that people think it is. It is not as simple as more students in a building. 1, Foster Elementary, we had to move 8 classrooms from our inside to relocate them within the building. We will have a difficult time at Foster being able to fit all of our students into that building because we've had to move those children around. We are dedicated to working on that problem. We talked about it yesterday in our cabinet meeting with my central office administrators. We know this is an issue. We need to work with the foster community of how we do that if we're going to move to phase 3. And I do believe we're going to get there. I do hope we're going to get there, and I want to get there. The space issues at all of our schools for providing intervention services to children with higher needs. Some of the questions that we have, why do we have only a 4.5-hour day or a 4-hour day? Why is that? Part of that is because we provide a lot of interventions to students. whether it's through our Title I program, through special education, from English language learners. We provide all of those services in intervention. Those have typically been provided in very small groups or in very small rooms or offices. We're not able to do that now because of spacing. So frankly, in the afternoon, we need the classroom space to provide intervention for services that need that. That's one of the main reasons why the 4-hour day and doing the schedule of we've done it. So there was a reason for that. It's not because we didn't want the students. We simply didn't have the space to provide intervention services to our students in the afternoon or during the day that are actually required by law. And so we need to get in. We need to see what that looks like. We need to see what space is actually needed, and then we can use that information as well to move forward. And finally, and this isn't the only finally, this is just the big point I want to make, transportation is a major issue if guidance from DESE does not change. We can only put 23 to 25 students on a bus. If I'm putting all of the 2,000 elementary students in our education program, I cannot provide transportation for those students. Again, we'll not be able to do that. We need help from parents. Parents have asked me on a regular basis, what can I do to help? I really need your help figuring out the transportation of our students. I know it's a burden for some. I know I've heard from many parents from 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th graders who live a distance from our schools and I can't transport. I don't have a great answer for that. It's not because I don't want to. I simply can't put them on the buses and get them there. Projected enrollment, many questions around enrollment. Please understand these numbers are still very fluid, right? And so what I'm going to give you tonight are not solid by any means, but they're a pretty good guess and predictor. So they may not reflect the final enrollment. So our estimated enrollment for 2020-21 right now is 4,018 students. We normally have about 4,300 students. That's not counting any new enrollments, and we will have some. We always have new enrollments. So this is going to change and going to go up a little bit. This represents a loss of, just a pure loss of 282 students. 167 students so far have withdrawn and enrolled in private schools. The majority of those, and I'll show you a chart in a minute, are 9th grade. And so I believe that's where the largest number is. I'll look at the chart with you in a minute. But that's fairly normal for us. 9th grade is a transition year for a lot of students. But again, it's higher than normal. And so it's 167 enrolled in private schools. 55 students that so far have applied for homeschool or have withdrawn or they've anticipated they're going to withdraw. 52 students have moved out of Hingham. So again, that's a normal thing for us. People do move and they move. And then 8 of our students have withdrawn for other unknown reasons. And that's a myriad of concerns or issues of why they withdraw for no reason. So that's our number so far, 282 down. The total number of students withdrawn for 2021 right now is 282 students. That represents 6.5% of our total population, so a reduction of 6.5%. It represents largest number, K-5. No surprise with that. 174 students, grades K through 5. 45 students withdrawn from 6-8, and 63 students grade 9 through 12. Approximately 9.15% above the average overall of students will be enrolled in remote only. So that means that approximately 368 additional students will be in remote only programs K through 12. So when we think about what does in-person in our schools look like and what's that total come out to be, this represents in-person right now reduction of 650 students across our 6 schools. That's withdrawn in remote only. The greatest amount, obviously, is the elementary level, which hopefully will actually allow us to move faster to getting more students into school. But then again, that could change. So these people that withdrew school and they decide to re-enroll, that could be problematic for us. So again, I'm just telling you all the things that we're going through and trying to figure out. So approximately a 15% overall reduction for in-person instruction across the district. And I think that anybody who's been listening to me for a while, I said it was going to be right around 15%. And I was fairly close with that number. So That's what projected enrollment is. These are enrollment projections. And again, you see the biggest number we have, we normally have about 300 kindergarten students. This year, we only have 242. So we're substantially below. We're 60 students below, give or take, what we expect. And I'm not horribly surprised by that, given the situation. And talking to my colleagues across the Commonwealth, that's a common thing that's happening, particularly now that we're not full day as well for kindergarten. So we have the greatest number of loss is kindergarten. Then you see in 1, 2, we begin to creep up to that 300 average, that 289 in first and then 293 in second. And then we're creeping up over the 300, other than 8th grade at 296 and 12th grade at 298. So again, fairly stable at the higher levels, but then the lower levels is exactly what I expected, considering the challenge this is for families, unfortunately, in hybrid or in remote learning, of what that produces for them. So this is not a big surprise. If you look at the graph on the bottom where it says fully remote versus hybrid, we're running, as I said, about 90% or better in regards to how many students have chosen the hybrid versus remote. So the blue on the bottom of that, I don't know, I hope you can see that at home. Of our kindergarten students enrolled, only about 10% are actually doing full remote, 13% first grade, 11 second grade, 13 third, 10% at fourth grade, and only 7% at fifth grade. And then the number is obviously going down below the single digits in 6, 7, 8, which is right around 7% on average, or 8% on average, and then substantially lower when you get to ninth grade at only 5%. 10th grade, for whatever reason, has a little bit more at 11%. 8% are doing remote as juniors, and 7% as seniors. So our enrollment projections, again, this is just another graph. And you can see kindergarten is our big area there. The green represents private schools. So students in kindergarten have chosen private. Our fairly large number of students, 32 of what we would have had. 7 have gone to homeschool, 4 have moved out of Hingham, and 3 we don't know exactly what their plan is, because it's not required if they don't turn 6 by the end of this calendar year to register. In first grade, a large number of students have chosen homeschool, 24 of them. There is a pod in town, and you're going to hear about that later as we talk about that in homeschool applications. But you can see across the board the high numbers kindergarten, and then once again at 9th grade, where we have 36 students that came out of 8th grade that went into private. That's actually fairly consistent. That's not really vastly different than what we've seen in the past. So again, our big anomaly here, our big abnormality for us, is that kindergarten area, and understandably so going into hybrid. So I have just some final thoughts, and I know somebody asked, I heard the comment earlier, not another PowerPoint, and I apologize, but I thought this was the easiest way for me to, one, stay on task and give you a lot of information quickly. But we all know this has been a difficult period for the students, parents, staff, teachers, administrators, and all the supporters of Hingham Public Schools. We're moving forward, and while I understand you all want details, and believe me, I want to give you those details, I'm just as frustrated I can't give them to you. We are getting to those as quickly as possible. We appreciate your feedback, your questions, your constructive criticism, and your suggestions. They're all an important part of our learning process as we take on this difficult task. I will also say something I didn't put into my PowerPoint. People have been asking, what does remote learning look like? What does hybrid learning look like? Or you don't seem to have a plan. I hear that a lot. Folks, if you look at the plan that we did on August 6th, and granted, I understand it's a 90-page document, and it's probably not something that anybody wants to read without having problems sleeping and getting you off to sleep. The fact is that in those pages, and I'll read you just one off page 9 where it says remote instruction, and I'll do it quickly, is that, sorry, my fan was on, turn my page. Students will engage in remote instruction. Students will engage in remote learning on all days that they are not in person. The remote learning model will emphasize daily synchronous lessons. That's what our plan is. Our plan that was written and approved by the school committee has fairly detailed documents about what our plan is of synchronous or mixing with synchronous and asynchronous instruction for those students that are not in the cohort that's in person, those students remote, as well as those students who are fully remote. Those details are being worked out. We are going to have those for you. I have absolutely no doubt that our teachers are working on that and planning for that. And by the time we start, I know it's later than usual, by the time we start, they will have those to you and have that information to you. I want to remind people, and I know this isn't on the slide, but in any normal year, we'd be on cruise control. Any normal year, in June hits, the teachers leave, everyone goes in cruise control. We hire teachers, we start to do all the things that we do during the summer and have been doing for 100 years. We have protocols for everything, for how we hire people, for how we open the schools, how we close the schools, how we bring students back, exactly when we're going to do this or that, when schedules are going to come out, when students are back in the buildings, etc. We have protocols for any of that on any given year in a normal year. This is obviously not a normal year. I think we all know that. We all get that this is not a normal year. We have to develop those as we're going. It's not going as fast as we'd like. We're all frustrated, but we're all going to get there. And I want to give people that hope. We're going to get there, and we're going to produce a good product. I have incredible faith in our teachers. This is a time, if I can implore people to understand, this is not a time that we are blaming one side or the other. We're all working on this. We're all working together. We're all going to make it happen. And I believe that we'll all make you proud of what we're doing. So we appreciate your continued support of Hingham Public Schools and all you're doing for us. Thank you. And I'll end my PowerPoint for those who don't like PowerPoint.
Thank you, Dr. Austin. There was a lot of data in there. Will that be available on the website?
I will put that on the website.
Okay, great. Thank you. So before we take questions, is there anyone on the committee that has questions or comments on the PowerPoint? Okay, Michelle?
Sorry, I'm good. I was Liza.
Okay.
Thanks. Paul, thank you for the detail. Greatly appreciate it. I'd like to echo on the numbers that the 9th grade transfer to private schools, that is a typical year of a lot going to private school. And I would say in the kindergarten, that was pretty typical back when we were only offering half-day kindergarten, that we had a large group going to private full-day kindergarten. And then we always had that challenge of what's the first grade going to look like the next year. So that also is, that's historic. That, we've seen that before. So I just wanted to reassure people that I agree with you on those statistics. I've seen those before as well. But thank you. A lot of detail and a good update for everyone.
Okay, thank you, Liza. Anyone else on the committee? Okay, in that case, we will go. I see a number of hands raised, so we'll go through. We are going to keep to a strict 3-minute limit per speaker, but would love to hear what you have to say. So the first person is Noelle Jaros.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep, hi.
Hi. Again, first, I want to thank the administration, the school committee, the teachers. It's been a very long, hard summer, I think, for everyone. I just wanted to follow up on the one set of data that you had put out there, Dr. Austin, about green and gray being sort of the determination about when we go remote versus we stay in person. Can you clarify that a little bit? What are the metrics that will be used to determine that?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. Every week we get an update. As I said, we meet with our COVID response team. And so we work with our Board of Health and we get that updates from the state. Those metrics just basically measure the several things they're actually measuring. One is how many cases we have in Hingham specifically per 100,000. So I think the number is if you're below 5 per 100,000 over a 2-week period, you end up in green. And if you're below 4, I think it goes to gray. We've been fluctuating between green and gray. Those are areas that we feel confident with, that the transmission in the town is very, very low. But I want to be clear too, we have other problems. Right now, moving to the full in-person is more problematic in the space and how we're going to be able to use it at this point than the gray-green. So that's good news for us. We have some other things to figure out when we do get in school. We have to ask a couple of questions. One, does that transmission stay low? So we're going to measure that in school. We can get really sophisticated in our group of COVID response team. We can tell where I don't know exactly who gets the COVID-19, but we can tell the ages, we can tell the neighborhoods they're from, what school they might attend, etc. So it really is helpful for us to try to plan to move forward. So that's one piece of the data. The second piece will be, can we move everybody into the 3-foot ranges, and that's safe to do. So 2 pieces of data with that. But that's where the green and gray comes from. It's from the state, and they give us the metrics of where we are, green and gray. Frankly, we've been much better in general in Hingham than the majority of the Commonwealth, other than a lot of the western regions who are pretty much gray. So we fluctuate between green and gray, and that's very good for us. I will caution everyone, though, that data is really taken on for multiple weeks at a time. So we have to watch the trend on that. Just because you run to a yellow 1 week doesn't necessarily mean that you wouldn't move forward either. That yellow could be because we're testing nursing home patients, where you might have a few in a nursing home that have an outbreak that has nothing to do with the population of students or population we're serving.
Okay, I think I understand.
A lot of data goes into that, or a lot of thinking about what it looks like.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Noelle, I'm sorry. Could you just state your address for the record?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Noelle Giroux, 9 Highfield Road.
Okay, thank you so much. And the next one is Steph Pertel. If you could just give your name and address for the record.
Hey there. My name's Stephanie Pertel, and address is 451 Main Street. I guess my question again is around the green to gray. I did hear from Governor Baker today on his press conference that he said if your town is in green, you should be going back to school. And it seems like there are a lot of other school districts that are trying at least to go either for a full 2 days or 4 days a week. And since our numbers are so good in Hingham, I think that, any of the numbers that do come out really are around nursing homes or possibly Linden Ponds is what I've been hearing. I'm wondering what the rationale is there, because as we do move into October 1st, which is when my kids possibly will enter school for the first time, that seems like a more likely time that the flu is going to start to go around, or that there could possibly be another outbreak in, Wellesley or another town, and all the schools shut down. So I don't know what the rationale is between not moving forward now in September, where we have very few cases, and then if we have to shut down, but just getting a few weeks at least in for these kids who haven't seen a school since March, or waiting till October 1st before we try to get them back in.
Well, let me say, let's clear up a couple of things about when they're coming back in, and I can help with that. One, there's a reason why we chose that first 8 days as being fully remote for a majority of students. One, so that when we do have to go, if we have to go remote, we need to make sure we're able to do that overnight. We don't want to get ourselves in a position again where we start going to school, we haven't fixed the bugs in a remote system that we could fix now, so that when we do have to go remote, we're able to switch quickly. We don't want to have to figure those out when it's too late and we're already in remote. So that's part of the issue. Two, we've talked a long time, and if you recall, we've been doing this for several months, trying to figure out the best way to come into school. And so we thought, one, is to integrate children slowly. There will be small groups of students going into schools. That'll be the plan. That I don't know what grade your child is in, but elementary may be coming in for meets and greets. They may be doing some assessment during those first couple of weeks. We haven't seen students in over 6 months. There has to be assessments. We need to find out where students are at. So teachers are going to use that time to get ready for that and to assess students to make sure that we're ready for them and give them the education they need at their level. So that's two. And the other part of that, we have two cohorts, that A and B, that A-B cohort that's together. That's going to have students from higher needs students. Those are students with special needs, perhaps, for our English language learners, some of our METCO students, some of those students who have Title I programs, perhaps. Those kind of students that have a great need that we have prioritized from the very beginning will be starting as early as the 17th. So we do have students coming in. We're not waiting necessarily any longer than that. And the other thing that I would say, the 4 hours a day, as I said earlier, we certainly are struggling trying to make sure that we have enough space to be able to provide the law-required interventions we need to provide to students. We do not have space to do that unless we're able to do that in some of those rooms that open up in the afternoon. So that's one of those reasons. Now, if we can figure out, once we get in there and we see the student flow and we can find other spaces, that's another metric we'll be able to use to bring more students back. And so that was the primary purpose of that. I'll also say you see programs all over the Commonwealth, all over the place. You see some people going 4 days a week for 2.5 hours each. If you add up the time, our time is not much different when we talk about in-person time. So we plan to maximize our instruction during that time, and we have to knock it out of the park, frankly, in remote learning when kids are performing from home. So you're going to go after 4 hours, you're going to go home, you're going to log back in, and you're going to do some both asynchronous or synchronous specials. So kids will be invested all day long, but some of it's going to be in person and some of it's going to be from home.
Yeah, and I guess that's another question too, because, I do have a 2nd and 4th grader, and I think the expectation of them logging back in, getting back home and having to do, gym or art class or music at home, and, whatever that entails, because I don't think that was very clear of what that is going to entail, but that's a pretty big expectation for elementary school kids who are coming home, are going to eat lunch, and then are supposed to log back onto a computer. I think we all know how that's going to go, but I think that I think the most of the frustration that I have heard from many of the parents that I've been talking to in town is just that it's the unknown. We still don't know their classroom assignments. We still don't. I know what you just read about, in the 90-page document, but when we asked principals what was the remote learning going to look like, the answer was there's still no plan. And so that's a little frustrating with elementary school kids because they can't log on to a computer and do anything themselves.
Well, let me clarify. There is a plan. There has been a plan for months. And so what we're talking about, it's a hard position because whenever you're in negotiations with the union, there are certain things that we just can't talk about completely. As much as we'd love to tell you this is exactly what's going to happen, we have to negotiate in good faith with our association. And so some of those things are still up in the air. But I want to be clear, there's been a plan, and there's been a plan for a long time for us to be able to work from, and we will do that. I get this is less than ideal, believe me. And I've talked about this before. I don't know if you've been on before. I have grandchildren that are doing some of the same things, right? And so I get it's less than ideal. We don't want that. I also say, I'm bringing back just 3 weeks later, after we open up schools, I'm going to make we're going to talk about it at the school committee and then talk about possibly moving into phase 3. So we're not talking about a long period of time. We need to figure some things out. And frankly, just like you're going to figure out what is that going to look like at home. We have to do some of those things at school to see how they're actually going to work when we get going. Because this hasn't been done before. And I know I've said that and I'm a broken record when I come to it, but it hasn't been done before. And so we're going to try to figure this out as we go.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Next is Allison V. Douglas. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Thanks. Hi, it's Allison Douglas, 9 Isaac Sprague Drive. I have two, sort of related questions. The first is there anything that you can share about what are the key open issues in the negotiations with HEA? And then the second question is, what's the school committee's role with respect to those negotiations, and in particular, with respect to any impasse that's reached in the negotiations?
Well, I'll talk in generalities because in my PowerPoint, I said that the major issues around exactly what hybrid learning and what remote learning look like are still our major discussion points, and we're working through those. I don't want to give everybody the impression, right? This is not that we're not making substantial progress, because we are, but there's probably 70 or 80 items in an MOA. And so we're working through probably 60 or 70% of that already, and we're continuing that. We're going to meet again tomorrow evening, and then we'll meet again if we have to Friday. I'm hoping that's an incentive for all of us, because nobody wants to spend Friday night in negotiations. I'm pretty positive I don't, and I know they don't either, but that's work that has to be done. And so that's happening. The school committee is actually the negotiating unit. They're not negotiating with me. I'm part of it, but the school committee has its own negotiating team, and so they are with me as well in there, as well as our attorney, just like the representative from the MTA. We're working through those issues, and we will get through them. I think, it's too early to, and I don't want to talk, I'm not an attorney, and I don't want to pretend like I know all the labor laws by heart. But if we run into impasse, we have a plan. I just don't think that that's what's going to end up in the end. I'm really confident we're going to have a plan. We're going to make that happen. And I think that impasse and what happens next is going to be a moot point for us. Thank you for the question.
Okay, thank you, Allison. Next is Kristen Bull. Could you state your name and address?
Hi, I'm Kristen Bull. I live at 4 Volunteer Road. My question is, I have younger children, so I have a lens for the younger kids in our community. I am just wondering, when was it decided that kindergarten would be half day?
Oh, it was probably a few weeks ago. We had to decide that because we simply we had no capacity to run a full day program with them. So we can't charge. Well, first of all, let me say, a half day kindergarten is generally 2.5 hours a day. All right. That's a normal half day kindergarten. We're running 4 hours a day. So we're not half day either. We're 2/3. So we could not charge, realistically, it wouldn't be fair to charge parents for a full day program if you're not going to be there full day. Now, if we can get in full time and we open all up back into a full day program, then I'm sure that, and I can't speak for Mr. Ferris, but my guess is we'd all be very interested in seeing if we can go full day and bringing back a full day program and figuring out a way that we could reinstate that program and actually recoup some of that large amount of money lost. But there was absolutely no way to do a full day program with what we had.
Well, I'm just wondering, when was that in the 90-page document? Because the first that I had heard of this was last week in our Zoom with our principal.
I don't think it was. I can't remember. We've been talking. I don't know if anybody from the school committee when we talked about that. Okay.
Sooner. And I also, then my next question would be, so the kids that don't know how to read or write or add or subtract, are we going to try to get those children in sooner for once, we enter the next phase? Is there a plan for the younger kids?
I mean, our plan is that we're going to get them in as soon as we can. And that's what we're trying to do. That's what we've talked about, the metrics. That's why we're coming back on October 19th. We've gone a number of ways, and the principals and I worked to see how we could focus on the younger students. That is absolutely our focus area. We want to get them more time in the classroom and more time with their teachers, absolutely as quickly as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Next is Meredith Mchale.
Hi, Meredith Mchale at 2 Stanford Drive. I want to just ask a two-pointed question. Percentage-wise, how confident are you, Dr. Austin, that we will start a week from today? And is 16 hours of live instruction the overall goal? I think what's so confusing is we don't know what your goal is with regards to live instruction.
Did you say 16 hours? Is that what you said, Meredith?
Yeah.
At our time.
Yeah.
No, the goal is not 16 hours. It's 5 days a week, and probably 5 to 6 hours a day by the time you have the in-school and the home instruction. So we're talking 25 to 30 hours per week is the goal. That's what we had in our plan, and that's what we anticipate happening. And I can't remember if there was a first part of your question. I'm sorry, I focused on that.
Okay, how confident are you percentage-wise that we're going to be in school on Wednesday or remote on Wednesday?
I'm I have no reason to believe that we're not going to be in school on Wednesday. That's our plan. We're going to school on Wednesday unless something really happens in town that whether we have this big outbreak that happens or something, our plan is to go to school on Wednesday and to have the opening.
That's everybody's goal, right? I mean, we just keep seeing these news reports, Andover and Sharon, and it makes us all a little nervous.
I understand that. I can't have a crystal ball. I do get that, Meredith. I'm staying awake trying to figure this out at night. Trust me. I get it, right? I understand that people are nervous about that. I don't have any reason to believe that my union here and my union, the HEA, is not working with us. They are working with us. I trust our teachers. We're going to come to an agreement on some of those details, and we're going to get in school. That's what I really believe is going to happen.
Okay, great.
Like anything, I can't guarantee anything, but that's what I believe is going to happen. I can tell you that.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Meredith. Next, Eileen Bevins.
Hi, Eileen Bevins, 8 Plymouth River Road. I'm wondering that given that there's less time spent in class during the week, has the curriculum been adjusted? And if not, how are teachers expected to cover the curriculum given the reduction in hours?
Curriculum's not my, I would say it hasn't been adjusted, but I'm going to let Dr. LaBilwa, I know you're on. Can you adjust if there's any questions about the curriculum at all being adjusted and how they're going to cover that?
Well, I mean, so it's being adjusted it's being adjusted in two facets. The first is we're thoughtful of not being in front of children from March through June. So the first step is we're actually making adjustments back to identify sort of key core concepts that were not covered in the spring that are needed for progressive sort of learning into the next sort of year, this coming year. Does it make sense? So we didn't cover necessarily all of our power students. So we've identified the areas that which we have to reinforce in the fall. But again, the total time on learning, we're not projecting a significant decrease at all, actually. In fact, that was the discussion this morning, earlier today with our instruction leaders, our principals, was around there's the same total time of instructional hours in a given week. The adjustments that we're actually doing are to address the gaps from the spring because we did not sort of finish the curriculum as we would have if the kids had been with us since June. So I know there's also some other folks who've been asking for curriculum apps or resources or materials of what we're going to be covering. And the reality is our teachers will be working in collaborative teams and grade levels across departments to make those adjustments sort of as we progress through the school year. But our goal, as Dr. Austin mentioned, is a full return to in-person learning for full days by mid-October. So what we're doing in the fall is, again, the first, during the period of initial remote learning is we're screening all of our students in social emotional, reading and mathematics. That information will then help with instructional groupings when our instruction does initiate on September 16th. As we progress into phase 2 on September 28th with the cohorts coming in, the teachers will be prioritizing what is essential for in-person learning when the kids are in front of them. And then as we move into October with the initiation of phase 3, our expectation is a full return to 5 days a week of full days of learning. So we're not reducing anything in the curriculum. We're actually trying to make adjustments to cover and identify those pieces that may present as gaps in kids' knowledge heading into this year that we didn't cover in the spring.
So are you saying, so just for example, my son is a freshman, the number of hours he's spending in geometry is the same now as it would have been in a normal year?
Yeah, his schedule has not changed. His physical location has changed.
And so in the afternoon for high school, for example, my son's schedule and other people that I've spoken with, they're done at, once the in-person school hours are done. So the afternoon, it says they can log on for some synchronous or asynchronous instruction, but there are no classes. There's nothing there. What would they be logging on for?
So I can't address that question, Eileen. That's better addressed by a high school administrator. And I say that because the high school schedule is unique to the number of credits the child is taking. So in a tip, what you might be seeing is in place of where he would have had studies in his schedule, his day would end, as opposed to other kids who might be taking additional credits and other departments would be taking additional courses. So I think that's what you're seeing is where he may have experienced a study. And I don't want to misspeak on behalf of the high school team. So if anybody is on the call, they'd be better able to address the high school schedules in particular. But I do know that that does vary when the school day ends based on the number of credits that the kids are enrolled for.
Okay, and the high school call, they were very reluctant to expand upon what's going to happen when the kids go home. And I assume that that's due to the union negotiation, but we really did not get any answers about that in the high school call. That's my last point.
Understanding but in the afternoon, I believe there are electives that are being offered. I do know that that's part of the afternoon program. Is Mr. Swanson on tonight?
There were very limited amount of, hi Rick, there were limited amounts of the electives available, and I think that kids did not get electives because I think that it was reduced, but I will let you speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, Rick, I can't hear you. You're not on tonight. Quietest I've heard you forever. Still not.
Is he on the call?
Yeah, I don't know. It's he's not muted, so sorry, Rick, you're not on there, but
okay.
We could maybe ask Mr. Swanson to follow up with Eileen.
Nicole Piantes is there too.
Hi, everybody. Just want to clarify. It could be a specific question to you, so we can, you can contact me at the school tomorrow. But just generally, if your child your schedule should say remote for the last blocks of the day, if your child should be logging on. And generally, after the school day ends at 12:05, the blocks that start at 1 o'clock are specific to AP science labs, as well as music and gym classes. So your schedule should reflect that, but I'm happy to help you tomorrow, personally.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Ray Estes.
Hi, thanks. Oops.
Great picture, Ray, by the way.
There we go.
I like that one better than the other one. Wait a minute.
Oh, yeah, it's much better than looking at this. So just one quick comment, just in response to Jamie's point about the equivalent time. It's actually not, because and we don't have to get into a whole thing, but just I did the math, and for the high school level, 57 minutes a class generally, I think, times 5 is 285 minutes. But now, at least to begin, we're only doing 75 minutes per class, and each class is only meeting 3 times a week, right? Because it takes 2 days to go through a full 6-block schedule. So each class only is taken 3 times a week. So that's 225 minutes. So it's actually an hour less time for each of those classes. But that wasn't what I was going to talk about. I raised this last night, and I'll try to be very brief. And my question really is going to be, how can you adjust the high school scheduling so that you don't have catastrophic logistical and, frankly, equity issues with respect to the assignment of physical education to some students and not others? My example is my freshman daughter, who has her 5 core subjects, math, English, social studies, science, and foreign language, did not get an elective, but has remote PE first period. As a result, she'll need to get herself to school somehow if she's not able to, because my other kids will be going at a different time. So that means transportation-wise, we're going to have to figure that out. I understand that transportation is a big concern, and maybe we just need to figure that out. But the larger concern is one of equity. And this is just not me speaking. I've heard this from many, many parents over the last few days since the schedules came out on Friday. The decision was made that if you did not get assigned gym in the first semester, that and you weren't going to have it in the second semester because of scheduling, that you could waive out of it the same way the upperclassmen do. But that's unequitable for the students who did get assigned PE. And the larger question is, when we have such limited time, particularly with in-person learning, why aren't we trying to focus on the core subjects the most and the electives that the kids want to take and are interested in? I know some kids can't even get an elective in a class that they want to major in college. Why are we, focusing on PE? It's clearly not the most important thing. And I understand scheduling is impossible, but if we take PE out of the equation, I have to believe it's a little easier. So that's what I have to say.
Nicole, are you on? Can you speak to any of that, Nicole? I'm not that familiar with
Hi,
this
I'm
stuff,
here.
but thank you.
Yeah, excuse my lack of video right now, but
Okay.
yeah, so we did discuss this previously, but we, one thing that there's a lot of factors, like you mentioned earlier, about the domino effect. And if we were in fact to let every 9th and 10th grader utilize this year to drop gym, we would be in trouble in the future catching up with these kids' graduation requirements. And that's only one factor. To then have everybody trying to get into the schedule next year, we just wouldn't have the resources to get them in, in then. So, the fact of the matter is people did not get everything. It is not perfect because of the pandemic, but gym is important and it is a requirement. Although we had to waive it for kids who we just couldn't fit it. But for those who did get it, it doesn't mean we can drop it, and that's the way it is.
Okay, I'm also back here, and my apologies. I had an issue with the microphone on the other device, so I've logged back in, and I did hear. I think I caught most of Ray's remarks about phys ed, and certainly was there for the remarks on that last night as well. I would reiterate the importance of phys ed as a part of our curriculum. It's a significant part of our curriculum. That's a state requirement as well. School policy that's aligned with state requirements around phys ed have been in place for a long time. And it's a commitment of ours to honor as much of our full academic program as we possibly can. And, all of our 9th and 10th grade students in a typical year will take phys ed. We're able to honor that request for most of them, though not all this year. There is a larger number than usual who did not schedule into phys ed this year, in which case, under these very unusual circumstances, we would allow them to waive the requirement under the same process that our juniors and seniors would in a normal year. But I think it's important to remember that the significance of that academic program, and it's also it's a place for students to remain engaged with our school as well. So I don't really see any possibility that we will redo the entire schedule at this point. I understand the inconvenience that's created by the remote phys ed. We have to offer it in a remote manner at this point under DESE guidance and following safety protocols. And given the large size of those classes as well, all those factors combined, and understand the inconvenience that it causes transportation-wise. We are looking at ways to give students who absolutely have to be in the building for first period or last period who have phys ed in that spot in their schedule to be able to do that remote work from inside the building. But our first preference will be that they'll be able to do it from home and then either get to the building late or leave the building to do that at home as well. So I understand a fair amount of controversy around it. Like any of the policies associated here, it has aroused some controversy and disagreement. I've received a lot of emails on it, and a few direct quotations come to mind. I've heard one person describe it to me today as a ridiculous, terrible policy. I heard another person describe it as good creative thinking. I tend to lean more toward the latter, and I think it's the right decision.
That's a quick follow-up question. Can you describe what remote phys ed will comprise of and how mechanically it will be delivered?
Well, at first, I guess I would want to know from the school committee that this is how we want to spend our time.
Yeah, that's actually the end of the 3 minutes, Ray. I'm sorry. Maybe you could follow up.
Okay, well, I've asked my question. I would just like an answer to it. Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah, we're going to move on to Julie Donovan, please.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Paul, I think this should be directed at you, and I posed it at the beginning. I think we all agree, if our comments sound a little contentious, I think everybody who joined the Zoom meeting tonight is because we actually care the most. And in the spirit of really leaning in trying to optimize getting the kids into class as soon as possible, full time, whose decision is that? Is that your decision, Paul? Is that DESE, CRT, school committee? Like, who makes that decision when that will happen?
It'll be my decision based on collaboration with the school committee.
So
I will bring that to them. It's my decision.
Okay, good. Thank you for confirming that. And then you mentioned that the meeting with the school committee to talk about that is on October 19th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is there any chance to move that date up? It just seems like we should be really raising a high bar and pushing ourselves as parents to get that date moved up as quickly as possible and not have so much learning on sort of the backs of our children that it's going to be clunky and hard. We have to figure out at the beginning of the year. It seems like we should really lean in and push.
I agree, but that's 3 weeks after we start. And we really want to answer the question, are we going to be okay without transmission? I need a couple of weeks to do that. We need some time to figure out some of the other issues that we're having. I don't think that that's an unreasonable. I understand what you're saying. Believe me, if I could start full and I thought we could do it tomorrow, it would be a lot easier than this. Trust me, I hear all the frustration with it. We need to have those 3 weeks to, one, make sure it's going to be safe for our students to do it and that people are not, and I think it's going to be. I wouldn't be starting if I didn't think it was going to be safe or is relatively safe. I don't know what that word means, right? What's safe? Is it no transmission? Is it one? I don't know. I think we have to work through that, and I need that 3 weeks. So I think that 3 weeks is a really reasonable time to be able to do that.
When you meet, when the school committee and we get to participate meet on the 19th, does that mean that we could be in school, the kids could be in school on the 20th? Or is there some lag into when that actually happens?
Yeah, I wouldn't dare to say that right now. I don't know what that crystal ball means. I'd like to, again, I'll reiterate, I want to get them back as quickly as I can and as safely as I can. And so I don't know exactly what that's going to mean yet. And so I need some time to figure that out. So I just don't want to, I'm hesitant, not because I don't want to answer you, because I want to answer you. Everybody deserves to be answered, right? I want to get them back, but I don't want to give you something that I just don't have any knowledge about trying to answer right now.
Fine. So as long as we'll be all very transparent and all understand what those guidelines are, so that, and I'm sharing this out of love for our students, just like everybody on this Zoom call. So there's no hidden agenda as to what the goal is, but we just don't want it to be so subjective. Like originally we had flatten the curve, and then we had, all of a sudden we're waiting for a vaccine. So I'm sorry to be silly. I want to stay on point, but if we're trying to get the kids back to school safely and as efficiently and quickly as possible, we'd like to see what those decisions are and how we're tracking, and quite frankly, how we can support and influence and do anything. If you need transportation, let's set up a Facebook page. Some of the high school students can help. Like there's lots of ways that parents really want to lean in and help. So we don't want to sit here and complain. We want to participate. So thank you.
And Julie, I first of all, I don't think you're silly at all, and I appreciate that. I know that this is a really high-charged night. I expected that. We're all working really hard at it, and you and me both. We have the same goal. But here's what I got to solve. One is space. I cannot. If you can figure out how I can put, and I'm not asking you to do this. I have to figure out how I would sort of love
to help, but I want to, yeah.
Everybody wants to jump in. I have to figure out, one, Foster Elementary is going to be problematic for us. I have to figure that out. Two, the transportation is going to be an issue. Three, we got to keep the metrics down. So those three things I got to figure out: space, metrics, and transportation.
Space.
That's about as transparent as I can be.
That's good. That was my question, and you did your very best to answer. So let's keep sort of tracking to those and be very transparent about how we're doing, so that we can also, as parents in the community, influence them. And
Thank you, Julie. I
support you.
appreciate that.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Julie. Next is Joshua Ross.
Hey again, Joshua Ross, 125 Wampatuck Road. I have a super simple question about transportation. So we're going to have two kids, one in the middle school and one in the high school. It looks like we're going to have to drive them both. Can anyone talk to sort of logistical planning on how like drop off is going to be? Is it going to be allowed to drop the kids off a little bit earlier? I've mentioned this before on a call. If anyone's ever driven down 228 to drop off at the middle school, it gets to be a little hectic. So I'm not sure if we've thought of, what that time frame is going to be to drop off, somewhere around 800 kids for the middle school and then all the kids at the high school because everyone's driving. And honestly, we don't know what time the middle school is starting yet because we haven't gotten schedules. So if someone can, can we drop them off early? Is there going to be a little bit of leeway if people are late, that sort of stuff? I'm not sure if anyone.
But what I'll say with that, Josh, I'll say that it'll be our goal that, one, we're going to have a protocol on that. We know that that's an issue. We've talked about the issue of how that's going to work in town with so many people driving. We'll have to have a written protocol of how that's going to happen. I would have a goal of getting that to you a week in advance of actually coming in. Okay.
Okay, that sounds good.
Thank you.
So, do you think we can go to school early, or they can go to school earlier, or you don't know yet?
I don't know that yet. We'll have it. We'll work through those issues, though. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Hallie Grace.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep. Hi, Hallie.
So, Dr. Austin,
sorry, could you just state your address for the
Oh,
record?
sure. So, Hallie Grace, 20 Franklin Rogers Road. So, I've the first comment is, Dr. Austin, you continue to talk about space. So, have we ever looked into modular classrooms? I mean, I know growing up, we always had modular classrooms at our school buildings. I grew up in upstate New York, kind of similar public school system to Hingham. Thayer just kind of invested in a lot of modular classrooms. Is that anything that you've looked into, that you've explored with the CARES Act? Would like to know that.
Well, the quick answer is yes. We're looking at all those options. We were just actually talking about that 2 days ago and thinking, could you do that? The problem is that those are major construction projects. It's not as easy as dropping a portable off in your place and you're ready to go, because there's landscaping, not landscaping, but preparing the ground, electricity, water, et cetera, to get those all up and running. And so, the fact is that we've run out of time to be able to do this. So that's one issue. We've also looked at tents and just found out that's just not found out. We've really discussed those are not great educational environments. Getting students out in tents, particularly at Foster, that might work for a couple of weeks, but weather's going to turn cold. And then you have the issue of no water, running water. You don't have toilets. You don't have internet access. You don't have smart boards. All the things that our teachers need to be able to teach effectively. And so the quick answer is we've been looking at all of those. We're going to continue to looking at what our best option is. I would also warn people: the CARES Act is not it's not a endless amount of money. We put in $700,000. We're going to put in another several hundred thousand as well. I don't know when that ends, whether that's 1.2 or 2.5, whatever it is. We're hoping it's 2.5, so we can continue to get money back that we spend. But suffice it to say, this is going to be very expensive. And again, we're doing everything we can. We're working with our finances to do the best we can with all of these things. So the quick answer and a longer one that had to be, I'm sorry, was yes, we're looking at all those options. We continue to look at them.
Okay, and then my second comment just refers to, I believe it was Liza from school committee said that, similar patterns of going to private schools or, other forms of instruction, whether homeschool or private schools, is on trend with similar years, particularly in the years of kindergarten and ninth grade. I mean, I think I would just like to comment on behalf of many of us on this call that the rest of us really have not been able to react to kind of the late nature of, leaving the school system for another option, given that many private schools and parochial schools had their classes filled last, spring in their normal kind of filling. So I would not say that we should be looking at these patterns as normal and that many of us would choose other options if we could at this point. So I just want to make that, comment on record that none of this patterns of leaving the school system should be looked at as normal at this point. But other than that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Hallie. Next is Laura Acetella. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Hi, Carrie, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
My name is Laura Acetella and I live at 4 Boulder Glen Road. I have a child in East and a child at Hingham Middle School. And I just want to thank everybody for getting those Chromebooks out to the elementary school kids. I'm sure that a lot of work goes into that. And I was really happy to be able to pick that up. So thank you. I also want to thank Dr. Austin for the details he provided tonight around enrollment. There is a lot of speculation, and I agree with the previous person who spoke that this is not typical. And but there's been a lot of speculation, so it's really good to hear your perspective and to see those numbers. So thank you for taking the time to pull that together. My question is about phase 3. It's really encouraging to hear that you'll be ready to discuss moving to phase 3 as early as October 19th. But I'm rather surprised about that because I did read the 90-page report and perhaps I've misinterpreted it, which is why I'm asking the question now. But I read it that moving to phase 3 would require the additional staffing of over 65 full-time employees. And you've spoken to space constraints, transportation issues, and metrics earlier, but you haven't addressed these staffing issues. So I want to be sure I understand it because when I initially read the report, I was very pessimistic and I thought, wow, we'll never get to phase 3 because how could we hire 65 full-time employees, at the start of a school year? So can you help me understand that and tell me what I'm missing? Because I really would like to share your optimism and I just don't right now.
Yeah, I think that's probably a really complex answer to that. And I don't think that I'm going to try to do it justice. First of all, we have 600 and some odd students we don't have in the classes that we had. That's a really substantial 15% reduction for us makes a very big difference in the classroom.
But 15% less of 65 is still leaves you with a lot of people to hire.
Yeah, and there may be some others, but we believe that by the time we've reduced that, you're now looking at classroom sizes because we were looking at a time, we have our normal enrollment is 22, 23, 24 kids in a classroom. When you move that down to 18 or 17, that's now doable in 3-foot spacing. Before it wasn't. So I had to create another classroom completely for that. Okay. And so really it's about the numbers. That's why I'm worried. And when I said the one caveat that I have, if we all of a sudden have an influx of people saying, okay, they're open for business and they start coming back, we're going to be in trouble. We're really so tight right now that we have classrooms. That's one of the reasons why the cohorts have been tough. Like if we have a class of 10 kids in a classroom and or 20, we're now down to 10. There's no room one way or the other. So if one pulls out, I got to put somebody else from somewhere else. I don't have any room to move that. So we're really dependent right now. The only reasons why we can talk about moving quickly to 3-foot spacing is simply because of the reduction of numbers of students that we have. That's one of the easiest answers I can give you.
Well, Dr. Austin, it is the answer, right? So Laura, to your point earlier, we knew when the facilities subcommittee ran the study, right, of what are our classroom sizes, how many desks can we fit in at 3 feet and then at 6 feet at distancing. We realized then, right, this is back in like July, right? Like that's when we realized the kids don't fit. So if we have to now put everybody, for example, at 3 feet of physical distancing with the class sizes as they are, we could not physically fit all, and in fact, our high school science labs, right? So we can only fit a reduced number in that physical space as well. So what happened was with the volume of kids who have either chosen to go fully remote, because we take that number into account, they won't be attending, coupled with the number of students who have left for private school or who are homeschooling, Our enrollment numbers are looking as if we actually can move to phase 3 without those additional costs of teachers, because what would have to happen before is I would have to take 2 or 3 or 4 students out of every class and every grade level and create another section. Right?
Okay.
For every section created another teacher, another physical space. And that's why, to Hallie's question earlier, that's why Foster is such a dilemma. Because so even before we got started at Foster, they had to, because they have 8 classrooms with no windows. Right, so there's no, and DESE guideline says kids cannot be in a learning space with no windows. So we had to relocate 8 classrooms in Foster into the presentation room, into the art room, into the music room, into the cafeteria. And in fact, as they open, the lunch space right now is out under the covered court in the back of the building. So as the other buildings now have realized a sort of a slight, because enrollment has reduced, we now have the ability to talk about a phase 3. That's why Foster is presenting even more of a challenge now, because Foster has displaced. So they couldn't run lunch in their cafeteria because that's now home to classrooms. Right, so they don't actually have. So that's why we did explore to Paul's, Dr. Austin's earlier point. I think it was to Hallie's question. We actually looked at other districts and whether they had empty school buildings. We looked at. We know that St. Jerome's on 3A there is not opening next year. We tried to rent that building. We've been trying to find appropriate space. And we're actually looking at some other spaces that might be available over in the industrial park that used to be a school, and the collaborative before the collaborative moved to their current location in Hingham, over by Derby Street. So we're actively exploring a solution for Foster. But you're absolutely right. When we first did the analysis at the enrollment at the time, there was no way we could ever fit without those additional costs. And then though not only the cost, but the additional space. Like we would have to actually find another location to house all these extra sections. Does that answer the question? Because what happened?
It does. I guess though, since this is a metric that you laid out there, when you do meet again on October 19th, if you could just include that. So again, I'm afraid there's this false hope out there, and I don't want to pass this on to my kids and say you'll be able to go back sometime this fall if there are these real barriers to doing so. So I guess if, just don't want you to lose sight of those additional full-time employees that you'll need. So if you could include that in your next update, that would be helpful, because I think it gives us a realer sense of what we're up against.
And I think once we get into school, Laura, honestly, then we're going to be able to see some of that for real. That's one of that's become so hard right now. I will continue to update all of you as much as I can on those things.
Okay.
But I hear that too. I don't want to say that we can do something and not be able to do it. But I
want to be optimistic. I'm just trying to be realistic in this really bizarre scenario.
You and me both. I believe that.
Yep.
You and me both.
No, and I appreciate all of your efforts. And I don't know, you can never have too many PowerPoints with detailed information. People can take them or leave them. So keep them coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Next is Juliette Fulgoni.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, could you just state your name and address for the record?
Juliette Fulgoni, 142 Hersey Street. We're in the Foster district. So I'm really glad that you just went over that, because I was really concerned about where this inside classroom loss was coming from. So I really appreciate that. And Julie, I think you are my spirit animal, because you asked many of my questions. So I think I will be able to really get this down a little bit smaller than what I originally had. So if we're, maybe encouraging DESE to update their guidelines, because of course that's part of the metrics. I live in metrics. I work on a fraud contract on a federal government, contract. So I'm very aware of metrics and all of that. So when we talk about things like metrics, that includes DESE's guidelines. So if they update before this October 19th, then we should be able to include those and have just less of a burden there then too. So I guess my thought is you're talking about metrics and we're talking about this October 19th. I want to echo this sentiment that parents are really concerned about October 19th being when you're going to look at it, and instead maybe looking at it on October 1st, since that's going to be the implementation date, because by then you're looking at already 6 weeks of good metrics. And if we can, encourage DESE to update their guidelines before then maybe, a look at that on October 1st would allow October 19th or 20th to be that first, sort of look back. I do think that we can find some creative ways to make that happen earlier, because the metrics are already good, with the exception of maybe the inside classrooms. And maybe there's a few others that we can kind of work on, Desi, collectively. And I mean everyone here, not just parents, but everyone. I know parents have been really loud about it. Another thing that I thought of is no one wants to take another survey. I understand that. But I was thinking, when you're talking about being creative about transportation, while I think it was Josh or somebody who had said like transportation is a big issue, there's other people where transportation isn't the main concern. So like, for example, we go to 3 feet distancing, and if I can get my child into school more, I'm more than happy to drop him off, and pick him up. So I think, there also may be some parents who, when you start talking about full-time and 3 feet, there may be some more parents who choose remote. So there may be like some value that you can gain from parent response on like, what would your response change if we did this? How, would you be willing to do, so I'm just thinking of like some ways that you can get parents involved, because I do think some people would have different circumstances where they can be helpful. I mean, I can't necessarily, carpool, 20 kids, but I certainly could, do my part on my street.
So Juliette, sorry, that is 3 minutes, but Dr. Austin, do you have a response for her?
Yeah, I just think I appreciate all the feedback of that, and you will get another survey when it comes time to transport. I can almost guarantee it. So thank you.
Great,
and we look at metrics every week. I want to say that's the other thing I would say. We look at metrics every single week. We have a whole team that's doing this, and we will take that data every week. So it won't be just October 1 that I start. I start now, and we start doing that. And I think the real proof is going to be the pudding when we actually put students in on a much larger basis. So thank you.
Thanks, I appreciate that, because I do think that, the state is looking at it just here's like what's current, whereas if you're looking at towns week over week, which is really what we do federally, like that's really where the numbers are going to tell you the better story. So thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Juliette. Sarah Goldman.
Dr. Austin, you mentioned earlier that students with higher needs will be attending both cohorts. So they've probably already heard this information because they've gotten that email. But there are many, many families in Hingham with students on individual education plans who are currently scheduled for 2 days a week. And very, very few of us have heard anything at all about our student services, despite calls and emails and reaching out. I'd like to know when students on IEPs, when their families will be informed of how and when their services are going to be received, and also how meaningful evaluations are going to take place if we're only in school for 2 days a week.
Dr. Venice, are you on? I think you were earlier. Are you on now?
I'm here. Hi.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. What I can assure you, and I know that everybody is really waiting patiently for information coming from the schools, what I can tell you is that they are working extraordinarily hard to provide individualized schedules to every student that they see that outlines all of the services that are in a student's IEP. If students have, let me back up. The days that students need to come in and the extra time that they are there is completely connected to the number of hours of service that are in their IEPs. So the general statement about AB coming in 4 days or 5 days is really student specific and 100% dependent upon the level of service that that individual student requires. But what teachers are doing right now is are scheduling all the services that each student needs in person, and families will be receiving those schedules as soon as they're done.
So I appreciate that answer. I'm wondering if I'm going to have it before the start of school next week or 1 week out, and I have no idea if I'm even receiving services at this point.
So all students who are entitled to services will be receiving them and will be receiving a schedule. What I can tell you, ma'am, is that you will certainly be receiving it as soon as it is done and before next week.
Okay, and can you just answer, if you can, I'm not sure. If
I'm sorry, the evaluations?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I've forgotten about that question. So the psychologist will be scheduling those evaluations. I can't tell you exactly how each individual evaluation will be scheduled. It will be up to that clinician. So they would be able to tell you when that schedule is, but we are well set up to continue, because we started doing evaluations this summer, doing them in person.
Okay, thank you for that. I just would like to say for the record that it's been a very frustrating experience for a lot of families with students on IEPs. We've received, as I said, zero information, most of us. But we're also coming off of a spring where we received, a very minimal version, and I can only speak for myself, but a very minimal version of what was written on our students' documents. So I think that there's some concern that that is what we're going to be seeing going forward. And I would just urge you, as you do reach out to families and you do put out communications, please don't lose track of this category of student, because there hasn't been a ton of communication as far as we're concerned.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Sarah. So I'm looking at, there are a number of raised hands. We're going to go down through Arlene Moynihan will be the last person. So next on the list, we have Judy Walsh. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure, thank you. It's Judy Walsh. I'm at 592 Main Street. I have 2 high schoolers. I have an incoming freshman and a junior. And I'll be shorter than 3 minutes, I hope. I just first wanted to say something positive and give some good feedback to the group who's been working on this largely undoable task of figuring out how to get all this to happen. And I do want to say that when the schedules came out for the high school, my kids were really happy with them, and I was very impressed, and it looks very logical to me. And I think that out of this, as much as we're struggling right now, I think I am an optimist, and I feel like we're going to come out with some strength on the other side that we didn't have. I mean, and looking at just the improvements that have been made in the buildings, and looking at, the air quality changes. I mean, kids with allergies are going to feel better when we come out on the other side of this. And I'm just trying to look at the silver lining in some of these ways. But we'll have some surprising insights from the kids, I think. I was really surprised to hear one of the comments one of my kids made. They were saying that when my daughter was asking, how do I figure out do I bring all my binders every day? What do I do? How do I get ready to, for my day? And my son said, yeah, I bring all my binders, but you only have 3 classes on any day that you're going in. So you only have to bring half the binders. So they were already saying, oh, that's great. In the longer class time, they were really kind of appreciating. So you never know what positives might come out on the other side of this, was one of my things I wanted to say. But I really wanted to advocate strongly and ask again if we could just make sure that everybody's in the loop as we go forward. I know you're still trying to figure out those days that are remote, if they can be live streamed, and or, there'll be some asynchronous learning, but the live stream component for me, when I looked at the schedules and I started talking through it with the kids, and I said, we think that, the days that you're in person are in person, but the days you're not there, you're still going to be live streamed into the class. So it's as if you're with those kids who are in the class hearing the same thing at the same time. That to me would be the ideal. And I just want to advocate for that, and hopefully ask that when you do know if that's possible, if we could know that as soon as we could. That would be, I think, a huge, just a positive for people who are concerned about what we're doing and what we're getting. And I just want to thank the group as well for the responsiveness. Whenever I email a question or email anything over, there's always a response right away. And I know that they're working on things like alerts for people on the website if new information comes on. So there's a lot of work going into communicating with us as parents, and parents do want to help out, as someone else said earlier. And so as there are concrete ways that we can help out and sign up, just keep that in mind, that you will have, I'm sure, a lot of people signing up to help. So that was a little bit of a patchwork, but those are the things. Mainly wanting to advocate for the live streaming, though, was the main thing I wanted to say.
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate the the positive. I know that people are very anxious right now. I know that we haven't met everybody's expectations, and I know this is hard. We've all been in this for a very long time. Many of the administrators, and I just want to say, many of the problems that are out there, I know that some sound easy, but everything has a domino effect. We're not complaining. None of us are complaining. We're just trying to make it day by day and to make this right and the best we can. So thank you for that.
Did you want to address the live streaming at all, or?
No, I think she was advocating for that. I hear that. I'll just say thank you.
Okay. Colleen Patton.
Hi, Colleen Patton, 3 Dwiggins Path. I have 2 questions. Well, first I should say thank you for all the hard work of the school committee and the teachers and Dr. Austin and everyone involved. I do really appreciate it. And I know it can't be an easy task. My first question is regarding 9th grade orientation. I had thought I read in a document that there was going to be an attempt to have some in-person for K, 6, and 9. I was disappointed to see that the 9th graders would be virtual for their orientation and then a self-guided tour on their own of the high school. I'm just wondering how that came to be and why it couldn't be in person when, if we can bring about 50% of kids back into school, a week later or, 10 days later, we can't have 25% of the kids in school for 9th grade or starting high school with, I feel like that's a significant thing. And they were really looking forward to, meeting teachers in person, seeing other kids, et cetera. And then my second question is regarding the amount of time for the classes. Ray and someone else had spoken about this, that it's about an hour less of instruction. And my hope is not that we are treating 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders as college students at that level, like 14 years old being expected to, go to a class for a couple of hours and then complete a majority of the work for that class on their own, as you would expect a college student to do.
Thank you. Rick, do you want to answer, Mr. Swanson? Are you able to answer some of that?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to address both those questions. The first one about our 9th grade orientation, which we have planned for Monday. And we are going to begin it with a virtual assembly that allows us to have the entire class together in one place, albeit virtually. We saw a lot of advantages of having the group together for one common experience. And actually our decision to move in that direction was accomplished at a meeting that included our faculty advisor to our mentor program and actually quite a few upper class students who had only recently gone, had been 9th graders at our school themselves. And that group collectively felt as though this really was going to be the best way for us to move, and that it would allow us to have one kind of common unified experience for people. And although we were not going to have the traditional freshman orientation experience of going through the schedule, meeting the teachers in person, we found that it wasn't really going to be practical to do it. It would have to be spread out over a number of days. And also we're conflicting with the professional development that our teachers are doing throughout this time period as well. But we still felt as though we could deliver really strong and meaningful orientation program for students that would allow them to meet their counselors virtually, to meet their advisors virtually, to meet in small groups with their upper class mentors as well. And then would give them an opportunity to come into the building later in the afternoon. And although we've described the tour as essentially self-guided, we expect to have quite a few student council volunteers and mentors, upper class students, to help students find their way around. So I think it's going to still be a very personalized experience. And they will have an opportunity in the afternoon to participate in the typical clubs and activities fair, but that'll be outdoors. We'll be able to maintain all safety protocols and social distance, and still give students an opportunity to interact in person with some of the adults and with many of the upper class mentors in the school as well. And our feeling is that under these circumstances, that it's really a very strong substitute for the typical orientation experience. But like everything else, it's going to be different, and it has to exist within the context of enormous challenges that's the same for the academic program as well. And the math in terms of counting the hours of how much instruction will be happening. Granted, it's not going to be the same amount of hours in classroom, but you can trust our teachers to be professionals and understand developmentally what our students are prepared to do. So I have every confidence that our teachers will create academic programs and make the necessary adjustments to respond to the very challenging reality that we're in right now.
Okay, so just a quick follow-up, if I may. So the on your own work that students are going to be expected to do, so like what would normally be considered homework, that you don't expect that would be increasing based on the fact that they are in school less?
I would not expect the volume of homework to increase significantly over what it would be in a regular school environment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Colleen. Next is Kirsten Moore. If you could state your name and address.
Hi, Kirsten Moore, 120 South Pleasant Street. I had a follow-up to that. If, Rick, it was available, I'm sure that a lot of the ninth graders would love to be able to get their hands on a map of the high school. And if that was available, that would be great, because they're not really able to go in like they normally would. So if they at least had that available to them, it might be something nice to have in their pocket. And my real question is, we are being advised that the elementary children need to bring in their electronic devices into school. And if this is the case, I'd like to know more on what they're going to be expected to do with this, as we are counting this as to be live in-person time. And if this is the only live in-person time they have, why are they bringing these devices into school? Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. I'll attempt that first, and then ask one of the elementary people to want to jump in. But one of the things that I've said, and I've answered this question a couple times lately, we've been using technology, iPads, Chromebooks, laptops, etc., to support the education of students as they work in the classroom for a lot of years. We continue to do that. When your child is in school now, or at a time prior to March, put it that way, sorry, we would have had carts. We bring carts in with iPads, we bring carts in with Chromebooks, and we share them back and forth. Simply in a COVID-19 era, we don't have the ability to do that. The other part of that is textbooks. We're not using textbooks that way. So we read some materials on, or have things available on computers that support and provide textbooks. But Mary Eastwood, are you on? Tony, one of you? Beth? Melissa?
I'm here, Dr. Austin.
All right, there you go. Tony, thank you. Somebody, you want to help me with that?
So I think, yeah, it's basically the reason to have the devices come into school is just accessibility. The goal is for teachers are still going to be providing live instruction face to face, but it's just having them as an option. Like Dr. Austin said, we're not going to have full use of textbooks. Kids, especially in the older grades, in 4th and 5th grade, they use the Google suite of applications quite a bit. And there will be times when there'll be what's going on in the classroom will also be what's going on at home for the remote students. So it's also a way for it to be all students have equal access at the same time to what's going on. So it does not mean the students can be sitting in front of a screen for the entire time they're in the building for 4 hours. It will be, limited on some days more than others. Just like Dr. Austin said, during our normal school operation, they would have devices. So that's the rationale for it.
Okay, thank you. Lauren McElhaney.
Hi, and thank you for being able to pronounce that last name correctly. Not many people can. So. I just have one very simple question that I feel like may have been addressed, but I don't feel like I have a very concrete answer around. Sorry, again, it's Lauren McElhaney, 8 Franklin Rogers Road.
Thank you.
And I have kids at Plymouth River and incoming Plymouth River. But I'm just curious, as I'm sure many people are, as to what these remote days are going to look like. And is it live teaching? Is it webcam? Is it pre-recorded? Is it, and I'm asking selfishly because I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing with my young kids during these days, especially because I have a pre-K and a kindergartner, as well as a second and a fourth grader that are all at very different levels, as I'm sure the majority of parents in Hingham do. So I think that's kind of been the burning question for a lot of elementary parents, to figure out childcare, to figure out how you're going to juggle all these different learning levels.
So Lauren, so that I'm clear with you, your child is on one of the AV cohorts, and so you want to know what they'll be doing on the off days.
Correct. We're in the A cohort. So what's going to happen on Thursday and Friday, and also what is Wednesday going to look like?
So what we anticipated, a lot of these, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say it again, I wish I had more specific details of exactly what it's going to look per grade, and I'm really hopeful you get that very soon. I want that to happen for you too. What we envisioned in our original plan is that those remote days were going to be a kind of a mix or a blend of all the things that you just said. There would be some live synchronous things with a teacher. It might be with a para. It might be with a specialist. It would be doing some things live with people. But I also see some asynchronous work because we don't want students sitting at their computers for 4 hours a day either, which isn't going to work well. So I see it as a blend of things to happen. There may be some things like there may be a Zoom meeting that you're going to have all together with all the students. So you may be coming into a class every day and starting that way. Those are the things that we envisioned. And what we need to do now, we need to figure out, and this is what all of our teachers are working. And again, I have great faith that we will continue to do that, and you will know by the time we start. And I understand why you want to know that, and you need to know that. And you know what, I'm going to own that you deserve to know that. So by the time we do that, we hope that you've got your schedule down of pretty much what that's going to look like, so you can plan around that. I hear that, but I think it's going to be a nice blend of what's working well for you. And I'm sorry, I've been talking, oh my goodness, probably almost 2 hours, and I don't want to start running my words together. So to keep it just short and sweet, it's going to be a blend of all those things. That's what we envision, and we hope to be able to give you the absolute schedule very soon.
So is it fair to say that it will vary by teacher, by school, by grade? And I guess a follow-up question, is this something that's still being negotiated with the union, or is this something that is in your control or principal's control, or who's leading this? Who's making these decisions?
So a couple of things I'll say. Yes, some of those things are still being negotiated, as I said. What exactly is the components of remote learning and hybrid is still being negotiated. I told you what's in the plan. That is our plan, and we're still working on some of those things. So I suppose that I can say it's in my control, but it's not, because in the end, I still have to legally work with the union to be able to figure all of that out. And you had two parts to that question. No, you did. I'm sorry. What was the second part?
No, I think you answered both of them. I think, just to put it, bluntly, there isn't really an answer at this point, a week out from school starting, which I'm not saying this to be, curt, but it's, I'm fortunately at home with my kids, but I know there are a lot of parents who are trying to juggle their work schedules, and I'm it's just very disappointing that this is where we are. But, with that being said, we certainly appreciate all the work that everybody's been doing. This is certainly,
we're going to keep on going until we get it to you and get it right. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we actually have a lot more on the agenda. So what I'm going to do for now, I'm going to call on anyone who has not asked a question already, and then we're going to have to move on. Again, if you have a second question and we don't get to it, and please email us, call us, text us. We're available to answer questions, and if we can't answer them, we can point you in the right direction. So the next person is Kathy Cronin.
Hi, Kathy Cronin, 222 Hersey Street. Thank you all for your hard work. My question is about school safety, particularly transitioning from fully locked buildings with one entry door that's usually monitored and you have to be buzzed in, to more of an open campus where multiple doors are going to be used, either to prevent congestion in the morning as the kids stream into the building, or I know at the high school, the kids are going to be taking mass breaks. I know Hingham takes school safety very seriously and that everyone at the schools does too. I'm just wondering how we're going to balance the safety protocols with the challenges that are being brought on by this pandemic. And I'm wondering if the Hingham Police Department kind of reviews, how we're going to start using the doors now and gives their advice on that.
Mr. Swanson, do you want to take what you've done at the high school so far? I think we'll talk mostly about the high school. But it's safest to say we're going to have protocol for that everywhere in all of our buildings. But go ahead.
Sure. I've discussed this at length personally with our full-time school resource officer, Tom Ford, who's at the building all day, every day. And he has been in touch with the chief and others at Hingham Police Department so that we can work in conjunction, not only having Tom available every day throughout the day, but also getting some additional support and additional coverage from other members of the police force, so that our plan essentially is that during those passing times when we would have many of our students outdoors, that we probably would limit access by car to the building, and we would shut off back access to the building. We have a new gate that was recently installed there that would prevent any cars from coming in through that back entrance, and that we'd have additional police coverage around the front, so that we could feel very secure about what's happening outside the building. Clearly, it is a big transition from what would normally be happening, but we've had a good discussion about it so far, and I think we'll be ready for it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Next is Susie King.
Hi, thank you. I have high expectations for our school system, as many of us do. And one reason we are sending our daughter to the Hingham Public Schools. And Dr. Austin, you stated that you still need time to figure this out and that the teachers are now making their academic plans. It appears you're working all hard. However, with respect, the results don't reflect this sufficiently. How is it? I don't know how is it that other towns have figured this out and Hingham hasn't?
I don't have an answer for you. I'm sorry you feel that way. I understand why you feel that way. I'm frustrated too. But 98% of the Commonwealth is the exact same spot we are. There are people that do have MOAs, but people are still figuring it out everywhere we are. And so I just want to correct that one thing, that everybody's figured it out, because they haven't. This is something new, but I certainly take the criticism. I own it. And that's what I do.
Okay, thank you. Kay Prashma. Okay, or you're muted, I'm not sure.
Sorry, I'm still learning the technology. Hi, everyone.
Hey, nice to see you.
Accepting my questions. Hello. I see some familiar faces. Sorry, I'm not showing mine. I have actually quite a few questions, so they don't have to be answered tonight, but I do want to put them out there because I know I only have 3 minutes. One, I'm actually going to agree with Ray Estes' comment. Let's please stick to academics. He mentioned that PE could be something that could be waived. I have a son in private school now, and they are giving me that option. I think that we need to stick to English, math, science, and history, possibly 1 or 2 other electives. But if, I have 2 high schoolers in the Hingham Public Schools, and they're going to be taking the ACTs and the SATs, and PE is not on that. Neither is MCAS. So, please give that some more thought. My other question would be, have the schools made any cuts to creating savings? I'm sure they have, because the buildings are not in use, but I'd love to hear more about them, and it doesn't have to be tonight. Secondly, I think a lot of parents have the question of what happens if you do not come to an agreement with the teachers union. I think there's only like another week. You know, I think a lot of parents don't understand how the negotiations work. And if there is no agreement, what happens then? I think that would be great clarification to many. My son has actually just got his driver's permit about 6 months later than planned because of all this, and he's going to be driving himself and his brother to school. He will be a senior. Are there going to be senior parking spots? I haven't really seen anything like that. Or are the parking spaces going to be utilized differently? Let's see. The other question would be, last week there was a questionnaire about which high schoolers are going to need Chromebooks. I did fill those out since mine don't have laptops, and I do understand they will be required in school. I was just wondering, since school is starting next week, what the timeline is for distributing those to high school students. And yes, I did see the numbers today about how some students have left the Hingham Public Schools. What I would love to see, and it doesn't have to be tonight, of course, is a comparison over the last 5 years. I would also like to see how many kindergartners may be going or being held back because of the situation. I know that the school committee, and I was part of that, worked very, very hard in keeping kids attending kindergarten at an appropriate age, and I'm wondering if the pandemic might have changed that. So those would be some interesting numbers to see in the future, and I think that's all that I have for tonight. And I know it's a lot, but I wanted to get it out there in the 3 minutes, so thank you for hearing me.
That's perfect.
Oh, and my address is 2 Old County Road.
Okay, thanks, Kay. Your timing is perfect. It was exactly 3 minutes. I will just say, as far as the savings goes, Nes Carenti and the finance subcommittee has been doing a deep dive into that. And I think at our last, or not our last meeting, the meeting before kind of went through some of those, but yeah, we are looking at those too. So Dr. Austin, did you want to address any of those, or are we?
No, I think that, you know, there's a lot of questions in that. One is the policy on kindergarten attendance has not changed. So even if a parent has asked, the expectation that if you're 6 and you don't have a waiver, you would come to first grade. So that policy has not changed. But I took some of those other questions we have, and we'll talk a little bit more. I think the savings question really is around, we've done a number of, as you know, we've been part of the program with the town of how we're looking at our work right along, what we're spending and how we're not. There's positions, there's one in central office we haven't filled to have savings, which is hurting us, because that's one of the problems that we have with getting communications out, is we're lacking people. But that's one of the savings we're doing. We're certainly savings on materials. We saved on the electricity and things like that. So those are some of the things we have, but certainly a lot of those will information we do later.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of expenses on top of that. Last question is going to be from Hingham Mom. If you could state your name and address for the record. Hingham Mom, are you there? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Okay, so Dr. Austin, thank you very much for all of that, that information. That was great. The next one, 4.2, is the enrollment update. Was that
already included in my report, so I don't need to talk anymore. Oh, I can do another PowerPoint if somebody wants me. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think we're good. Okay.
Can we ask about the pods?
Excuse me? I don't know who.
No, I thought there was going to be an update about the pods. That was about the enrollment.
Oh yeah, we're talking about that under 7.8, the homeschool applications.
Okay,
yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Next is 5.1, communications received by the superintendent. Do you have anything for that?
I have none.
Okay. 5.2 is other communications. I just wanted to mention to the committee that Dr. Austin and I spent the holiday weekend working on an op-ed driven by some of the themes we've discussed in our school committee meetings. Basically acknowledging the anxiety and uncertainty surrounding COVID and the closure and the reopenings. We've heard from all different constituencies, parents, teachers, community members, they understandably have questions, concerns, and have also been very generous with words of support too. And what we kind of came around to is that living through history is hard. So we want people to know that we hear that. And we're also kind of have a call to action for the community as well, to think about how we talk about, because there's been, while people have been very articulate and had great ideas and have been frustrated, there's also been some rhetoric. And we want people to think about the fact that there are people on the other ends of these posts and emails. And so we would think about, just be thoughtful about that we're redesigning education during a global pandemic with very few additional resources, and to know that everyone's committed to getting it right for our students and is proceeding with the best of intentions. I assume that every time we get an email, no matter what it sounds like, and I would just like you to consider that too. And also to just think as a school committee, as parents, as teachers, as community members, we're teaching our children how to go through disappointment and unexpected circumstances. And we have to think about whether we're proceeding from a place of anxiety and fear, or we can model resilience and coach our children through that. So we worked through it. It's in your packet. I made one change to it, and I'm taking off, I had it it was listed as from Dr. Austin and me on behalf of the school committee. I'm just going to say chair because putting both in is redundant. So if anyone has any thoughts about that, we can, but our intention is to submit it to the Anchor and the Journal to go out. Is there anything from the committee? Nope. Okay. 6.1, to review general interim policy on COVID-19 related issues and act as appropriate. This is a second read. For anyone who didn't tune into our meeting on August 19th, these are a set of policies that basically give Dr. Austin the authority to implement the school reopening plan and to adapt as necessary without the school committee weighing in on certain policies that we normally would. The goal behind it is to promote public safety and the safety of students and faculty, to maintain, to the extent possible, the high and efficient level of educational services, to ensure support for students in general, and in particular for those at the highest risk educationally, as well as those at social and emotional risk, and to comply with the emergency orders from the state, and to comply with financial planning as mutually agreed with the Board of Selectmen Advisory Committee. So there are a number of them. Julie, I don't know if you could put those up on the screen for anyone to know. Anyway, these policies, we took them from the template from the Mass Association of School Committees and tweaked them as appropriate for Hingham. And this is a second read, and the intent is to have these stay in place through the closure, and then they would revert back to our regular policies. So, okay, so we're going to address the mask policy separate, but so if you could put the general interim policies up first, that would be great. Thank you. Does anyone on the committee have any thoughts on these policies? Okay. I'm not seeing anything. So would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Hingham Public Schools general interim policies on COVID-related issues, file 1.13 supplemental.
Thank you, Liza. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jen. Let's go through roll call. Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Libby? Is Libby on? She may have lost her internet. She's dialing from pretty remote. And Liza?
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye as well, so it's unanimous. Libby will is not on. Okay, the second one is the face coverings policy.
Hey, I'm on. I'm sorry.
That's
Hi.
okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are you and I on the last one?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. All right, so the next one is the face coverings policy. And if that could go up, that's helpful. So this one, we made a couple of edits to this one since the first read, based on feedback from administration, and then Jen had made a comment to include band exceptions for band, chorus, musical theater, and PE, so we added that in as well. The one sticking point that we wanted to talk about is, if you scroll down, Julie, if you could go down to the first list of bullets, there we go. So it says you can stop there. Additionally, face masks will not be required when appropriate social distancing between individuals of at least 6 feet apart is enforced. And for bullet 3, while alone in an office or classroom with the door closed, it's been proposed that we take off the classroom with the door closed and just consider that that each building can come up with their protocols for mask breaks. And if what's driving this is that at the elementary school level, if a teacher's in their elementary school classroom by themselves doing work and there are no students there, and they might want to take, so on maybe one of the remote days or Wednesday, they might want to take their mask off. And that might be a mask break. The issue is at the high school where there are a number of teachers who share classrooms from period to period. So it's a little different for people to take their masks when they're not the only ones using the space. So I just wanted to get everyone's thoughts on this while alone in an office or classroom with the door closed, whether we want to keep with the door closed or remove that and just say, or sorry, so if we want to remove that bullet altogether, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Liza.
Oh, sorry. I would be in favor of removing it because the intent was that was going to be a mask break. But then there's also language up above in the second paragraph that, if that's still there, yeah, on the third line, it says when alone, yes, so starting there until, at the end of that line, end of that sentence.
Okay, yep.
We should remove that. But, it's, all of this is the intention of a mask break.
Right.
So it's covered in the policy. And I think, we were trying to get detail in here that it's better for each individual building when they have different groups of, different numbers of staff. And this is really pertaining to staff and then specific, but still want staff to have a mask break and do it safely. And I think that can be covered anyway.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Liza. Michelle, did you have?
Yeah, I think I agree with Liza. That's what I would think. I think deleting that paragraph and then just, I would also be in favor of just deleting that third bullet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone else?
Carrie, I would like to add to the community that, our policies can be adapted at any time, that the school committee goes through our policy of approving policies. And so that if state guidance is changed, then we can adapt this policy, and particularly when it comes to the specifics of theater, phys ed, dance, music, those things may change as the pandemic goes on.
Mm-hmm.
They may not, but if they do change, we can adapt this accordingly.
Right. And that's another argument for not getting too much detail in there too. So it'll give the buildings more flexibility to adapt more quickly. Okay, does anyone in the audience have a question about the face covering policy? I see. I think Hallie and Steph, I think you were on there about something else. If not, could you? Sorry, Libby. What?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I have a question. So I'm just trying to understand. If we were to take out the third bullet, while alone in an classroom with the door closed, that's in deference to the high school issue with multiple teachers using a single classroom. But we take that bullet out, and then teachers in the elementary schools who are the only teachers in a single classroom cannot take off their mask.
No,
so
sorry, no. What it would do is give the building principals the flexibility to decide what a mask break is in their buildings.
How does taking out that third bullet give the principal that discretion?
Well, because if it's silent on it, the principals will be responsible for implementing what we vote on. So if it's silent on that, we're basically saying we're not telling them that they have to allow this. They can make decisions on what will work best for their classrooms and their buildings. Does that make sense?
And Libby, that is addressed on the second paragraph. I'm not sure if you heard Liza comment earlier, right there.
Show me again. I'm sorry. So space. So I can. Okay. When alone. Space. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks, Libby. Does anyone else on the committee have questions or comments? Okay, I see Hallie Grace. Do you have your hand raised for this or for the pod question?
No, sorry, I raised it again. You didn't answer all of the questions before about kind of what would happen if there was an impasse with school. So that question was not answered. So the teachers union, to the HEA. So the question that was proposed, the last question of the open commentary. So that's why I raised my hand. It had nothing to do with wearing masks. I think we have all established that we all wear masks all the time.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Hallie. Sarah Jacobson.
Sorry. Thank you so much. Sarah Jacobson, 15 Hillside Terrace. I'm a math teacher at the high school. I'm having a lot of trouble with the mask policy, and I do appreciate you guys discussing this, and I'm in full support of you removing those sections. We had a Zoom meeting last week with our principal, and we had over 40 teachers in tears over this very subject. Last school committee meeting, we were told that this is a building specific policy, and then we were told it has to be a district policy. So I can just say that there's extreme fear on my mind, knowing that others may be taking their masks off. And I just want to publicly state that I really hope that at the high school, we can have a policy that everyone in the building wears a mask. And if you need a break, you step outside. So thank you very much.
Carrie, can I add to that? I think, with all of our policies, we have policy and then we have procedures, and the procedures are written by the administration. And so that's our intent, that the procedures for the mask breaks would be determined by the administration. But I'd also like to point out that in the policy, we do have sections if students are violating the policy and if staff are violating the policy, how those situations would be handled. And so, we do want everyone to comply, and we want everybody to feel safe. So, Sarah, I hope we've accomplished that in the policy, that there is a remedy if somebody's not following through on this.
I really appreciate that, and I do believe that. I'm just missing information because we're having faculty meetings and being told that we can take masks off when we're alone. And that really personally scares me for my health and my family's health and ultimately everyone in the building. So I'd really like a clear answer as for the policy at the high school, even if it's just staff in the high school. I really think at this point in time, can we please just take the safest route? I hope that we're wrong and we just played it safe. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Diana D.
Hi, Diana D, 3 Cape Cod Lane. I feel almost silly asking this, but when I was reading it, just make sure I understand, because it says in there, masks can be off at 6 feet with proper social distancing. I assume even though the desks are spaced at 6 feet, I'm understanding that your students are required to wear masks. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Even at 6 feet spacing?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So what was that line about the 6 feet?
That's so if they have mask breaks, they have to be at least 6 feet apart.
Okay, that was just specifically to mask breaks. Okay, I didn't know if that was just an exclusion to you don't have to wear masks at 6 feet. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Diana. Any other, let's see, Steph Pertel? No, Judy Walsh?
Hi, thank you, Judy Walsh, 592 Main Street. I just wanted to ask, and I assume that this policy was probably made in collaboration with the contact at the Hingham Department of Health, but I'm wondering about the piece about taking the masks off. I know it really scares people inside the building to take off the mask for mask breaks, and I understand that there's a lot of fear. We want to use science to make these decisions. I just want to offer that in our industry, I'm in healthcare, and in the offices where they're doing staggered schedules and having people come in, I'm not aware that they're utilizing a guideline of same space being shared being an issue. It's really more about space away from the other person. So if there's an office that is used by more than one person on different days, I'm not sure about the necessity to, and this is where I defer to the Department of Health. I'm not sure what their guidance is on the necessity to mask up so much on the alternate days or alternate periods as to wipe down in between people, which is really, I think, the intent of cleaning the surfaces. So I'm just not sure if you can comment on the Department of Health weighing in on this component, because I think that's where we don't want to be too lax, but we also want to make sure that we're allowing people to use their space in a safe way where they feel comfortable.
Yeah, no, thank you, Judy. And I did take a look at Mass General's mask policy, and you're right, it doesn't require that. Sue Sarney, who's from the Department of Health, did weigh in on this and signed off on this policy. And I think we're kind of trying to err on the side of safety. Especially to start. As Liza mentioned, we can go back and redo this and amend it as needed. But I think right now it's kind of erring on the side of safety, because we won't know if we overreacted, but we will know if we underreacted. So I think that's kind of the place we're coming from.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
I think that's what we were thinking. And plus the classrooms are different experiences, right? Because it's not just sharing offices on different days. I mean, it's sometimes hour by hour, right? And then plus you've got students in there. And so I think the number of people in these buildings is something new that we haven't seen in most places in the Commonwealth over the past couple of months. So,
yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, thank you, Judy. So if nobody else has anything, I take a motion.
I move that we
Carlos, sorry, Carlos, you're muted.
Oh, I was doing so good. I move that we approve item 6.1, dealing with face mask policy, as read.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Michelle. And we'll do roll call. Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Libby?
I thought we were removing the third bullet.
So, yes, as amended, right? Was that the motion? Sorry, Carlos. Yep.
As read.
That is correct.
You mean as amended?
Yes, as amended.
As amended?
Yes.
Okay, aye.
Okay. Liza? Aye. And I'm an aye as well, so. Thank you, everyone. Next one, 7.1, to review the reappointments for the Foster School Building Committee and act as appropriate. We're going to table that one for now. We're not sure if we need to do this. The Board of Selectmen recently did, but our initial appointments were not for 3-year terms. So we are going to table that for the September 21st meeting. The next one is to discuss a memorandum of agreement with HEA Unit B for a successor contract for the 2020-2023 year and act as appropriate. From what I understand, Liza, am I correct that we are tabling this as well?
Yes, we did come to agreement with them, but we just have some technical procedures that didn't get completed, and so we'll postpone this for another time.
Okay, thank you, Liza. 7.3 is to receive the notification of appointments for the school year. 7.4 is to receive notification of some full year leaves of absence. And 7.5 is to receive notification of advancements on the salary scale for a number of teachers. 7.6 is to receive notification of retirements of teachers. So thank you all for your service. And 7.7 is to receive notifications of the resignations of some paraprofessionals. And then finally, 7.8 is to consider some homeschool applications for 41 students for the fiscal year 21 and act as appropriate. Dr. Austin, do you have?
Yeah, what you have in front of you tonight. And so what we have, and most of those are a high number of those students are looking to enter a pod where basically what we have is parents getting together, having a teacher in 2 different locations around the town. And so they would be doing their own curriculum and working together with those teachers in delivering, I think it's K1 and 2 for the most part on those. The state has little guidance on, and they're coming out more often with exactly what to do with these. Are these homeschool? Are they private schools? I'm certainly leaning towards and that's why they're in the homeschool packet. I'm working with the director of that program. I think it's Roots LLC is the name of the program, or the company. I'm working on getting the final documentation. I'm confident that they're going to have all that to me, and I have probably 3/4 of it already. So what I would offer to the school committee tonight, and you've got all the other ones in your packet tonight that have applied and I've signed off on. The school committee certainly could. It's up to you how you want to address that, but you could approve those contingent upon me getting the final documents, so these people are not held back from starting, and that would be my suggestion to you if you feel comfortable doing that.
Okay. Yeah, I am. We could either do provisional approval until the next meeting, and then approve it if for good then, because I agree. We want to make this as easy for people as possible. And we could also approve the applications that are not part of that Roots group too. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this?
So this is just the 41 that's right here right now. Is that okay?
Yeah. And how many of those are not part of the pod?
Yeah.
I think it's about half. I'd have to look it in front of me. It's pretty close to. I think we have 15 to 17 in the pod, so it's just a little over half that are not part of the pod.
Okay.
So do we want to approve the non-pod homeschooling fully and then break out? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have questions on this? I see a hand for Stephanie Pertel.
Hey there. Sorry, Stephanie Patel, 451 Main Street. I just wanted to know what the reasoning is then for the pod, through the root pods not being approved, because I do have a second grader that got accepted into that, and was very excited to actually be able to go to school, and as I'm sure many kids would be. And I'm just wondering now, I received an email tonight saying that that possibly wasn't going to be approved by the school committee or superintendent.
I'm not sure why you received that, because I've been working with the director of that, and I asked for some documentation that I'm pretty sure she's going to be able to provide. I mean, the bottom line with any school program, it's my response. I actually called the commissioner on this because it's a new thing that I've never seen before, and so it's up to me to make sure that when a student is in a program that's not a public school, I have to ensure it's a safe place. It's a place that has curriculum, all those things, and I'm just making sure that all of those things are done to ensure the safety of our students.
Okay.
That's why.
You don't see any other issues with it happening as long as you get the correct documentation?
Absolutely not. No, I don't. That's why I'm recommending tonight that they make provisional approval.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, the state came out with guidance on August 31st, talking about micro schools, and which this would count as that, and what we needed to do, but there weren't a lot of details as far as what we have to do. So we want to make sure the kids are protected, the district is protected.
Okay, totally. Thank you.
That's all. Okay. So does someone want to make a motion to approve the applications of the students who are not part of the pod?
I'll make a motion to approve the homeschool applications of the students listed that are not part of the Roots pod.
Okay. And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ness. Okay. Roll call, Michelle.
Aye.
Jen.
Aye.
Ness.
Aye.
Carlos.
Aye.
Libby.
Aye.
Liza.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. And then as far as the students who are part of the pod, are people comfortable approving it provisionally until our next meeting or until the documentation?
I am in favor of giving the superintendent that discretion.
Okay, do you want to make a motion?
I'll make, yeah, you know what, Michelle, if you don't mind. Do you want to?
Sure. So are we giving provisional approval until such time as the committee meets again? Or until Dr. Austin receives additional documentation?
I'm comfortable with that, if you all are.
Comfortable with that. I've written that down because it sounded good when I said it. But I don't, all right. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the homeschool applications for the students listed for the Root pod provisionally.
Can I just hang on a second? I want to make sure we're right.
Okay.
I want to make sure. Jamie, did you have, I think you have a question, Jamie, and I want to make sure you ask it.
Okay, so the rights of homeschool children in the Commonwealth are protected from a Supreme Court case in Massachusetts. So there's certain required documentation that kids that are homeschooled are required to provide, and beyond that, we really don't have a lot of oversight, frankly, over homeschool. And I'm thoughtful of other cases I've experienced in other districts where approval around. So I think I guess what when the people from the pod initially reached out, there was initial conversation of whether they'd still be considered Hingham students or whether they could still participate with us and then sort of do their own thing over here with our curriculum. And the answer there was, no, you can't. You can either be enrolled or not be enrolled. So kids who are not enrolled either need to be enrolled in a private school or in a homeschool. I think what, and the language around the pods are really for families who are organizing on remote days this group of kids are not a pod under EEC guidelines. They are homeschool applicants who are choosing to hire a teacher and then be schooled by those teachers in community locations. So I think the clarity that we were seeking from the commissioner was what was whether or not this was considered a group under the EEC regulation. So I've met with Sue Sarney as well as the other town assistant heads, department heads who are going to be organizing the approval process for the pods. So I just I guess is there anything that we're waiting to get from them that is sort of beyond what they have to give us? And I'm only asking because I'm just thoughtful that we have very little oversight over homeschool.
Right. So I'll answer that, sure, because after I talked with the state on I think it was this weekend, actually, it was on Monday, holiday. So we have their academic program, we have all their academics, we have the people who are actually providing that, all those things are required in a homeschool. What the state advised me to do, just so that we're all clear, and I understand the oversight, but they also said if you're going to have it off-site, normally a homeschool program's in their home. This is off-site. So you want to make sure that, one, is it a safe place for people to go? So they're doing inspections. They're getting that all done. I'm hearing they're going to get fire inspection. They're going to get a building inspection. So I said, okay, just let me know the building is safe. All right. Two, I want to make sure that people are if you're not going to be there, and it was recommended that people have, either their fingerprint or Corey checks, things like that, which they're doing. So they're going to provide that information to me. It just gives us a layer of protection that I'm recommended to do, which is what they asked me to do, since I'm responsible for the safety of students. So that's what they recommended. So that's what I'm asking for information.
Dr. Austin, you also discussed this with the district attorney, our attorney.
Yeah, I attorney as well, and that's what we had decided to do. And so we get all the information so we can make sure that I've done my due diligence for any student that's not here in school, that they're in an appropriate program. So that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and it sounds like they were already taking appropriate steps.
They were taking those steps. That's why I didn't have any issue. They've done the academic piece, and I don't have a problem with that. The academics, the quality of the instructor was not a problem. They were just going to provide some additional things to me for comfort level, to make sure that everybody's safe.
Okay, I respectfully I disagree, but
you can. I'm just saying that came from the department itself.
Yeah, I know it did. I understand.
Okay.
Okay, so Michelle, did you want to make your motion?
I think I still want to make my motion. All right. Motion to approve the homeschooling applications for the students listed for the Root Pod LLC, subject to the additional documentation requested by Dr. Austin.
Okay. Yeah. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thanks, Ness. Roll call. Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Sorry. Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Liza?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay, so those are approved. Number 8 is other items as may not reasonably be known in 48 hours in advance of the meeting. Does anyone have anything? Okay, and finally, we are adjourning to the executive session. Would somebody, Liza, do you want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session, not to return to open session, for the purposes of approving minutes of the executive session held on August 10th, 2020, discussing strategy related to collective bargaining negotiations with HEA Unit A and Unit B for the memorandum of agreement for the reopening of schools for the 2020-2021 school year, and discussing strategy related to collective bargaining negotiations for the 2020 to 2023 agreements with the administrators, custodian and maintenance workers, cafeteria workers, transportation workers, and administrative assistants, the public discussion of which may be detrimental to the committee's bargaining position.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Michelle. And So Michelle?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Libby?
Aye.
Liza? And I'm an aye as well. So we are adjourned at 10:44. Let's take 5 minutes and then jump. Oh, I can jump on executive. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to everyone who tuned in tonight.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.